What's up, everyone? Welcome to Talking with the Bostons. I'm Keedren.
And I'm Katura, and welcome to Talking with the Bostons.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Talking with the Bostons. Hopefully y'all are doing good on this evening at this time, wherever you are. Give us some shout outs in the comments. We're so glad that y'all are here with us on today. I'm excited about what we're about to talk about. Let me get my sip.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, coffee at this hour can only mean one thing. It's about to be some conversation happening.
It really is. Yeah.
And we up. We up. Anybody else have an after church nap? So it is Sunday for us. So we don't know when you're going to watch this playback, but if you're watching today while we're live, it is Sunday after church, and we've had our meal and a nap. We ate good after church.
Yeah, man. Oh, man.
We ate good.
Yeah, no.
If I just say so myself.
Look, we threw down real quick. So
we did. But we wanna get into this conversation because we were having many conversations, but we always think about the type of advice we give to our kids in the midst of these conversations. We always have these conversations where we're like, oh, this would be good. We need to make sure that we have these conversations with our kids. And sometimes they just roll over into becoming conversations that we have with you while I'm talking with the Bostons. And so if you read the title, you kind of know which direction we're taking with this. And it is about some conversations we need to be having before we get married. And we'll get into some conversations that still need to have need to reoccur, be revisited. Yeah. But Keedren, I want to start with you because you and I know, and everyone watching may not know this about us, that we met in high school. Yeah. Some of you know this, but we met in high school. We were juniors in high school and we dated all through senior year, college, all of that. Fast forward 23 years later, we're still together. Yeah. But there were some conversations that we definitely had as high schoolers. Yeah. Involving our future. Do you remember what some of those things were that we talked about? I know this is an audible I'm throwing at you, but do you remember like some of our late night conversations before we got to like, no, you hang up on 3 hang up?
No, I do. One in particular, I remember because I'm from San Antonio, East Side, San Antonio. What's up, everybody from the East Side?
Okay.
I'll let you boy. No, living in Delcrest, and I remember being in my room. We had bunk beds. Don't judge me, but it was cool. And but yeah, I remember talking to you about just the future and how I knew that I wanted a wife. I knew that I wanted to be able to provide for my family, to get an education, to, of course, at the time, of course, you always talking about, what kind of job you want to have and how much money you want to make. So I wanted to be able to get a good job, to be able to provide for my wife. I definitely wanted to have kids, so, I think I remember, not in detail, but I do remember talking about the future with you and me sharing with you that I did want to have a wife, like I did want to be married. I did want to be able to provide for my family and things like that. What do you, if anything, if you remember about that conversation, what do you remember about that? Like, what were you thinking on your end?
I think I remember, I definitely remember that conversation because it wasn't a conversation that just happened once, but that's talking about the future and your plans for college, my plans for college, how we almost both went into the military because we took the ASVAB at our high school and we both scored above average. And we were like, oh, this is definitely an option. It wasn't a direction either of us clearly ended up going in. Keedren kind of got closer to that, joining the Corps cadets in college and doing all that good stuff. It was a great experience for him. But I remember us having those conversations about options that we had for the future. And nowhere in that conversation, I don't think he gave me the impression that he did not want a family, that he did not want to be married and be a provider and have goals for his education and his career and his life moving forward. And I don't think that there was any time in that conversation where I made you feel like I didn't want those same things either. I think our conversation was on point, except the fact that my goal was not to be a provider or anything like that. It wasn't, or you just threw me out like, what's that? There was nothing about that conversation that made me feel like I needed to be the provider, but I definitely made it clear that I wanted a career. I wanted an education because I wanted a career in education.
Yeah.
So I think that was a conversation we had. And if I had to put a pinpoint on it, this was probably within our first year. So we realized that not everyone will be in our same age group. But, when we met, you might be a little bit older, might be a young adult, or an older adult listening to this. But if we were talking to our kids right now, we would want to make it very clear that our age wasn't as important as the season for the conversation was.
Sure.
Like this occurred early on as we were getting to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so I also remember getting to know some things about you, like that your parents were in ministry, that you played the drums in church. Yeah. And that gave me some insight into your family's values. Your mom getting on the phone from another phone in the house and coming in like, hey, is almost time to get off that phone.
No, yeah.
I understood your family dynamic and the values that were in your home and that probably mattered to you too. Of course, we never want to get off the phone, but I understood that there was structure in his life. Yeah. And it told me something about the structure that I might expect from you too.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I think that is a good, we'll just kind of keep that going when you think about having a conversation about lifestyle and values.
Yes, very good, very good. Yeah.
Granted, like you said, we were in high school, so we kind of, we're students at the time, but still, looking at, like you say, whether it's the religious values and religious lifestyles, you know what I mean, as far as church and church background or just those types of things, seeing that kind of stuff, made a difference. But as adults, and we were talking about this, a while ago on the couch, like as far as like if we would have met in college or after college, right, it would have been different. You know what I'm saying? We would have been still. I think these are definitely things that are important.
Yeah, we would
conversations to have. Yeah, it was just the fact that we were young, but still wanting to get to know each other, but then also still growing up. You know what I'm saying? Because we weren't be able to provide for ourselves at that time. You know what I'm saying? Being teenagers, still living at home, but having these conversations about lifestyle and values based on where you are, like you said, in life is key. So discussing shared values, or recognizing shared values is key. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I thought that was really important because it wasn't just about knowing like you maybe went to church or that your parents were just in ministry.
Yeah.
It was also important to see like what that looked like in your real life and it wasn't because I was just like this super intelligent young teenage girl. It was a matter of like, I know what I'm looking at. So it doesn't exactly matter completely what I'm hearing you say. It was that I saw.
Yeah.
Like I knew you were going to church. I knew you prayed. I knew your family, prayed and had values around dating and integrity and honesty because it came out in just my observation.
Yeah.
Through your lifestyle, like watching you at school. Hearing about your reputation amongst your peers who knew you longer than me. And it wasn't like I had to ask questions and it wasn't like they had to feed me information. It was just watching the dynamic. Yeah. It was easy for me to watch the dynamic that you had with the world around you. Once we started, becoming friends, because I was still a new girl in the school where you had grown up in a community with some of these kids. You had been to elementary with some of them, middle school, high school, or you lived in the same neighborhoods as them, rode the same bus. Like there was some connection there. And it was very easy to watch how people were moving anyway, because I was the one that was new. I was kind of like the last to the group. And so it was very easy for me to notice those things. And your reputation, how you carried yourself, let me know that your lifestyle and your values match. Not that they were one and the same, but that they were actually connected. What you valued, it showed up in your lifestyle.
No, that's real.
Yeah.
No, that's real. Like thinking about the ambitions, because, we were dreamers at that time. You know what I mean? Like really saying that, these are the things that I'm pursuing.
But you weren't just telling me you wanted to go to college.
Right.
We would catch each other in between the counselor's office or when the people who came to, show our counselors how to do the FAFSA, the grant filing online and different things, or us passing each other in the hallway and you'd be like, oh, what you getting into? I just left the counselor's office. I'm about to go back to class. I was trying to figure out how to get this money for college.
Yeah.
Like there was actionable steps to it. And then seeing you go on trips. Like, I'm gonna be gone for 2 days because I'm going to spend a night with the Corps cadets. Like, actually seeing you in motion. Right. And so I think what we're saying is it's important, at least, okay, let's say what I'm saying. It was very important to me that I saw the things that you were saying. Mm-hmm. And this it has less to do with our age than it does the season that we were in. We were in the early stages of getting to know each other. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that I would say, this is just my opinion, but I'm gonna say it anyway because it's mine, right? It is my opinion. And that some people dating today want to define and solidify and lock in something, sometimes too soon. Mm. And they're still in the getting to know you phases. And so the things that really don't matter that much kind of are making their way to the forefront. Like, where can he or she prefer to eat, or take me to eat? No, like that kind of stuff. Like, first of all, we both gonna eat with or without each other. That's not like a major conversation. Right. I'm not saying you don't talk about it, but in the grand scheme of things, getting to really know someone who you might see some potential in building a future with, I think our conversations were pretty substantive. Yeah. For that season of our lives. And it was in the early stages where we took the time to say, like, this is important. These are things we really want to know. So they were questions we really asked and stayed up till 2:00 in the morning really talking about.
No, for sure. But then our conversations evolved too as we grew. You know what I'm saying? Because absolutely, even though we met and we were dating in high school, we still didn't get married to our early 20s. You know what I mean? Like right before we graduated from college and things like that. Yep. So of course, as you're in a position where that the person that you're dating or courting, or and you're in this position where you can see yourself with them for the rest of your life, then of course the conversation should shift, if you haven't already talked about these things or recognize these things, really start leaning into some of these things, because you are making a decision for life. It's a life decision, and I think it's important to have these things drawn out and have a proactive conversation about them, because like you say, we kind of get ourselves locked into something and we don't really know fully what we're getting into, because we didn't have these conversations, because whether it feels taboo or whether it feels like I don't really want to shake things up. Well, that's probably the best time to do it anyway. And if I'm asking you a question about what you're,
that shouldn't shake you up.
Right. If I can't see something and I want to know something, right. It shouldn't be an issue for me to ask you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Like, it makes sense to me. It shouldn't shake you up. It shouldn't shake you up to the degree where it makes you nervous. Like, oh, somebody's moving too soon. No, I'm actually trying to get to know you. Right. And that's the thing. I'm not trying to see myself with you in the future, just because we've been talking for a week, or we've gone on 2 or 3 days, or we've had 4 or 5 conversations. That's not me trying to see myself in the future. I can't see myself, or I wouldn't have been able to see myself with you if I hadn't been able to see you first. Mm-hmm. And seeing you first had a lot to do with getting to know you. I had to get to know you so I could see you. Like, when you're talking to me and seeing your actions and seeing how you move, that gave me a picture. So if I can get a clear picture of you and how you move, then I can say, can I see me moving with him? Mm. Can I see him moving with me? Or vice versa, right? Yeah, so it wasn't just about me saying, I can't see myself with you, or I can see myself with you. Yeah. Some of that is happening too soon. Like, you have to be mindful not to get ahead of yourself in the early stages, and really take the time to have conversations where you are really getting to know someone just for the sake of getting to know them. Right. Because at the very least, you gain a good friend. Right. At the very, you know what I mean? At the very least, you gain a good friend. You've not exchanged your heart or intimacy in a way that's going to be detrimental to either one of you, or your future, or your path. Yeah. So yeah.
That's real. No, I like that. Oh, thank you, Alicia. That's our sister, Alicia Johnson.
Oh, hi, Alicia.
Yeah. No, that's real. And this is something, and I think, honestly, and I'll say young love, but like when you are at that stage, too, it's a little bit more pure and hyper focused than I think it is. And of course now it's different because of social media and things like that, the options and a lot of access and the things that are put before our youth in these days, and just not even just youth, but people. When you're on that scene, I think for us, it was a little bit more focused because we didn't have a lot of extra stuff. It was just like, okay, I see you. We were truly wanting to be friends, right? You know what I'm saying? Like we were friends before it even got to that point, so that's
we still we had real life options.
Oh, for
that's
sure.
Very different than social media because on social media, let people tell it. Like, I need to pursue all my options, and with this delusional mentality that every single person out here just hasn't met you yet, and that's the goal. And it's like it wasn't. There were other young women that were interested in him and liked him. Love you too, Mom. There were people that were interested in him, and we lived. First of all, we lived in two different directions. I lived on the west side. He lived on the east side. What he had in his favor is that he grew up around there, so there were people who knew him longer than I did, had more access to him, and all of that. And it was the same with me. I had the same thing on my end. What I think the difference is that when we met each other, the goal wasn't to pursue a relationship. It was to get to know who each other was.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I'm not putting us on a pedestal, but I'm thinking, like you said, because the intentions were so pure.
Right.
It was genuinely like, I'm already attracted to you.
Right.
Right. So now I just want to know more about you.
Yeah.
I think we've lost that sensibility. Even when we hear sometimes adults speaking, like it could have gone a different way. I've definitely talked to boys that I thought were nice, but I didn't find physically attractive, but they became my friends because they were nice. Right. Maybe I didn't see myself in the future with them, but that wasn't like a whole deal breaker the way it seems to be now. Like the lists that are out there now for people, they assume that these, I don't know, mystical creatures, really exist. And it's like, just get to know people.
Yeah. And that's a whole nother.
Just get that. I mean, that's just my thought. Like, I don't want my kids to have this long list and they're like, I'm just going to believe for it. It's like, look, do this.
Yeah.
Focus on your character and who you are. And as you meet people, make it a point to just get to know them.
Yeah.
We don't have to complicate this thing.
No, for sure.
Because I feel like our relationship, it ended up evolving organically.
Right.
Because that's what we did.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. When you're genuine and then it evolves, you really have something of substance to stand on and grow on versus that shallow or something that's just superficial, that after a while, if you find something similar or better with a couple of things that maybe you're interested in, now you're on to the next thing, but just thinking about in the mindset, kind of sticking with that, like this is someone that that you're interested in, y'all are interested in each other.
Right.
It's important to have conversations about lifestyle and values and recognizing what those things are, while you're at this part of the relationship, at this phase of the relationship. So definitely career ambitions, what they like to do in their leisure time, how they spend their time, that matters, right? Because whatever's important to them, right now, that's whatever they put their time into. Yeah, that's those things are important to you and to them, so understanding what that is, and if you're okay with how they budget their time, then that's something that, then you both can agree to continue to support each other on and not grieve or stress each other out about it. But if it is something that could potentially be an issue, then now you're having that conversation and say, hey man, you really love to, spend a lot of time doing such and such or whatnot. What's, how do you, talk a little bit more about that or whatever, lean into it, ask those questions, at the point now so you can have an understanding of what that is, how you handle finances, right? Because some of you are really good at handling finances, but you might meet somebody that's like, hey, you know, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm making money, so it's, you know, I never really thought about no budget. You know what I mean? Right. Having those conversations so that way y'all can get on the same page, so you're not stressing out, crunching numbers in your head.
Do we have a point about
while
that?
They are, you know, we might. Well, it's just kind of it goes to the financial management aspect of it.
Good right there.
Yeah, but recognizing these things to be able to say, hey, let's talk about this. You know what I mean? How do you feel about these things? So that goes into that. But what will be you had some other notes too.
Yeah, because I think it's fair to say too, even in learning this information, it's not for you to assess it. Meaning it's not for you to grade it and be like, they failing in this area. Right. Because sometimes people's practices are the way they are because they're single.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to listen and ask questions that point them to like, this is what I do now. Mm-hmm. But obviously, you know, in the future, if I were in a long-term relationship or started a family, obviously I would have to trade some of that time for this other obligation, this other priority. So those are not deal breakers, but there's still things that you just actually, I think you should know.
Yeah.
I just think you should know in advance, and it's okay to ask the question because those things will change, but you never open up the door to have a conversation if you never first initiate it and engage in it.
Right. No, that's good. That's good. Don't want to catch nobody off guard, right?
Yeah, because people's time is important to them. They like to do what they like to do. You know?
Let's get that understanding.
Yeah.
This next one, you know, I think this is cool too, like conversations to have about family planning, like, right? Yeah. Be open about your expectations about whether you want kids or not, right? Whether you want children or not. I know our conversation, like I said, our first one, was I knew that I wanted children. You know what I mean? Like,
and when we met, I had one.
Right.
I had a tiny baby.
Right.
So yeah, it was kind of like one of those things. I didn't even think I wanted more, but you knew you wanted more.
Right. So see, because in that aspect, it definitely could have been something like, hey, I'm good, you know, and of course, for me thinking futuristically, you know, we were teenagers, you know.
Right. Which is why I was like, no, I'm good.
But I wasn't thinking about like right now either. You're right. You know, so having that understanding. But if you are, you know, and as adults, like I said, if we would have met after college or during college and things like that, having these conversations about family planning is important. When it comes to children, maybe how you're going to even raise them, like how many you want.
And not
what you not when do you want to have
not
one,
how many boys or how many girls.
Oh yeah, you can't control that.
Well, that is purely biological, but like on a real note. And how do you even know? Like when people have this, we're trying to help y'all not be childish, right? When you think about this, like, oh, I want 2 boys and 2 girls, and that's just an example because that's what we have.
Yeah.
But that was not intentional. It really does boil down to like in this phase of our life, what can we manage?
Yeah,
you know, and why those can't be superficial things. Like just having the conversation. You know, there's levels to these kind of conversations that you should be having.
Yeah.
It's not that you have to plan that family. And here's the thing too. You're not bringing this stuff up like on the first 1 or 2 times y'all are talking.
I think we have a question right here too.
I think that's too soon.
Yeah.
I think before you go to family, you want to start with individual.
Yeah, that's definitely levels.
Get to know the individual.
Yeah.
Before you hold on. Do you feel there are levels on certain questions asked or are all up front in the beginning?
Definitely
I think there are definitely levels. Yep. I think they should be in the beginning, but I think they should still be at levels.
Progressively?
Because some people, progressively, because for someone, the beginning could be the first 2 dates. For us, the beginning was the first, couple of months.
Yeah. Because it could be something like, I need to know this, like low key now, depending on the how important it is to you. Like I mean, for lack of a better word, but how much that thing means to you. If finances is a big deal, if family is a big deal, if to you, if where you serve or work, location wise, you know what I mean?
If you want to know if they already have children, if they've ever been married.
Yeah.
Are they married? Like,
Right.
let's not play. Like, how do you feel about marriage?
Yeah.
Are you currently married?
Yeah. So
how do you feel about kids? Do you actually have children?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like those things.
Some things off top, it's like, let's go ahead and talk about this right now.
But not like, do you want to have more children with me in the future? Like, that's kind of a later conversation. I think you're starting with, who are you?
Yeah.
Who are you? I want to tell you who I am. I want you to tell me who you are. The sooner, and I think being clear too. Are you a believer? Because we talked about that lifestyle and values.
Same beliefs,
Do we believe those kind of things, and what does that look like? And your beliefs and things, those evolve too. Those things grow as you grow. It's not for you to evaluate and check it off and be like, no, that didn't match. That didn't line up. You're gathering information. And I've heard people say, well, dating it, it can sometimes feel like you're on an interview and you're interviewing. I know we don't like the word because it can feel like a cliche, but it essentially is what it is. I tell people when they're going for job interviews, you're not just sitting there allowing them to ask you questions to see if you would be a good fit. You should also be listening, and you should also be observing, and you should also be asking questions to see if they're a good fit in your life. Because when you go on a job interview and you're going to work someplace, you're probably being interviewed by a supervisor or a potential manager. If there's someone that you want to submit to on this job, in this career, in this role with this organization or establishment. So there are some things you need to be checking for too. So I say, let's normalize bringing back the word interview process, because it really is getting to know each other. It's just not as quick. The interview process is only different when it's like one of those come in and come out type situations. But I've had to go on interviews where I got interviewed by 3 or 4 different people. This is a day-long kind of thing. Sometimes I had to come back a second time. Those kinds of things. Those are processes that kind of set you up to know what you're really looking at. Because again, before you can decide if you see yourself in something, you need to be able to see the truth about what a thing is. And you need an opportunity to gather as much information as possible. Everything might not be a deal breaker. There might be some things that are not on your list that are actually great. That like, that's actually all right. I can live with that. I didn't even know that was being offered out here. Praise God. But I think just an opportunity to gather information and get to know people and get to know you. And the reason why we say this, that the sooner you can be yourself and the sooner someone else can be themselves, the sooner you can make a decision is if this is even worth pursuing going down the road. People end up feeling like they wasted their time when they spent a lot of time nickel and diming information along the way. And the next thing you know, you're in a 2-year relationship. Y'all done moved in. Y'all done started sharing bank accounts. Maybe there's a child now that's involved, or there's family members involved. Y'all done shared holiday pictures. Y'all coming over to eat at each other's house. Like y'all have engulfed as this, as if it's the real
big investment. Invested so much.
You've invested all of that, and you didn't count the costs. And probably neither did they.
No, for sure. Oh, that's good. Dr. Stewart, interview goes both ways. I agree. Do you want to be here? Do I want to be here?
Yes.
For sure.
For
sure. And I think clarity and understanding, like that beats the world. You know what I mean? Like if you can get an understanding, that's what you want. Because our relationship, we've, of course, it'll be 17 years we've been married this year. And so our relationship and our conversations have evolved. The things that we deal with have evolved, individually, on our career, in our businesses, but then also collectively in ministry, how we conversate with each other, how we work with each other as far as like trying to work out things that so to keep us from conflict, even conflict resolution. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. Here too, how you deal with those kind of things. But I'm saying all of that to say is if we can ask the hard questions, or things that we feel may be a little like bring some tension, and at least do that proactively when there's not an issue, but just to get an understanding, because you're going to have those conversations throughout time, throughout your relationship. And I think it's important to
do
know
it at this level before it's at this level.
Right. And one thing I've loved about you is that, you've always been straightforward.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
you.
Like you always been straightforward with like how you feel. I remember I used to say, like, sometimes I would apologize for things, just, I would say I'm sorry, and she would be like, for what? You know what I mean? Like, be specific. Tell me what, and wouldn't let me get out of that. But it didn't really frustrate me. It just made me think like, yeah, you're right. Okay, let me, for this particular thing, that I did, because that I know that may have offended you or upset you or whatever it was. It was one of those things where I knew that if, like, when I talked to her, I had to kind of be straight up, you know what I'm saying? Versus there are other people that, I could just talk to and it wouldn't be this, you know what I mean? Like, they would, I guess, accept it. Not necessarily a bad thing, but it was how I needed to communicate with her. And so it's practice too, when it comes with that, to the communication. But yeah, let me,
okay, I like that.
Yeah. So lastly, as far as this family planning thing, because this is important too, before we move to the next thing, it's like, when we think about children, how many you want to have? We talked about that. If you want to have them at all, how are you going to raise them, right? How do you plan to raise your children? What are some of the things that are important? Yeah, and raise and support them. Having conversations about that is important. I think it's a beautiful thing, because especially now, if you have children already and you are dating or courting someone and y'all are getting serious, of course, this is definitely a big conversation to have, because now you're blending. And so it's definitely important to see how we're going to be able to work together and partner with that. And then if it's, now if there's still a relationship between, the children's mother or father, another parent, then how that dynamic is works, how that's going to be managed,
and
right?
facilitated.
Yeah. All of that stuff.
Is there a respectful and responsible conversation being had around it?
Yeah.
Because and you can try to do everything right and it still not work out. But you can't go wrong with trying to pursue peace in situations like this. Sometimes I've seen parents that are the custodial parents want to withhold children from the other parent, or withhold them because they're in a dating situation and like, I don't know that person. I would say that yes, that's important, but understand this, there's going to be a dynamic created if there's tension created between the kids and parents too. That was like a piece of lint or something that scared me. A dynamic between parents who are tussling over kids, and usually it's because there was a lack of communication. Usually if the parents that are separated are not on good speaking terms, there may not be respectful and responsible conversations being had, saying that, hey, I am courting someone, I am in another relationship, it's not incredibly serious at this moment, but I am talking to someone. I don't know them well enough to give you my word that you would be comfortable with them in this phase of our relationship, but I want you to know that that's happening. So as it progresses, I would like to keep you abreast of it, of what's happening as far as that goes. And I would like for us to have an opportunity to meet this other person if I ever decide that, I do think that it's becoming more serious and this person may be another extension of our family. People don't want to have those, but we said this is a conversation for grown folks. Like, you have to be mature and responsible about managing even these kinds of things, because in non-traditional families, this is a conversation that needs to be had, and it can be had, and it can be done with healthy boundaries, making sure that at the center of everything, and when we talk about family, let's just emphasize the kids as being valuable and significant members of that family. How do the adult decisions impact the kids in this family? That matters too. Again, you can't always do much about the response of the other person, but are you actually trying? So sometimes that means as the custodial parent or even the other parent, the shared custodial parent,
Mm-hmm.
do we have to come to terms with, what, I didn't like that we broke up in the first place, or I still have some unfinished business, or there's some things that I left unsaid, or I'm actually jealous that you have moved on. Like sometimes we need to deal with that and we don't. And guess what? It shows.
Right. Yeah.
It shows. It expresses in other ways.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're jealous and you're not over me, just say that.
Right.
At the very least, if I'm mature and responsible, I need to be able to say to you, I understand that. I definitely understand that. And I can empathize with the emotions that you may be feeling. And I just want to be very clear on this boundary, that while there may be no romantic future for us in the foreseeable future, I do want us to remain friendly enough, maybe not even friends, but friendly enough to make our children the priority, so that they're not in therapy behind us.
That's good. That's good. Let's see. Tamara has a question right here too. This is good. Do you feel like the kids have a say as well? You feel the kids have a say as well when it comes to
I think their
this
feelings.
conversation?
I think their feelings matter. I don't know about say, because it also depends on the development and the maturity of the child, right? And children also can pick up on how we're feeling about a certain thing. And so their thoughts and emotions can easily be skewed by how they witness our interactions. So I think it's going to be really important, even sometimes if your child is of age where you can say to them, listen, I know you love X or Y, mom or dad so much.
Yeah.
I want to be honest with you and tell you that we're not getting along. But if they're a good parent to you, I don't want you to have a bad interaction or negative emotions like me. I'm working through this because I want to be better.
Yeah.
But I don't want you to feel bad because I feel bad right now, because I'm going to be okay. Sometimes we need to just be honest with the kids as well, because I think their feelings matter, and giving them a safe place to say, how they're feeling about the other parent or that decision. Because for them, it needs to be very clear that no parent is being replaced. I think that's the thing too. And that we're not expecting or asking them to choose. And a lot of that starts with both parents being, again, responsible and respectful. The things that we say in front of our kids about the other parent matters, and it will form their opinion. And it should, because if someone was talking about their mom or their dad or their grandma in school, and they had a visceral reaction to it and maybe an aggressive reaction to it, we would say, well, that makes sense, because you don't talk about their mom, you don't talk about their dad. Well, that feeling inside of them doesn't change when it's one of us.
Yeah.
So with them, I think it's important for us to manage our emotions and the things that we express out of our mouths and through our behavior. Well, if we need to apologize for some ways that we've expressed in front of our kids, I think that's the mature, respectful, and responsible thing to do as well, and let them see that we've not always managed this well. I'm sorry you saw mom and dad fight. I'm sorry that you heard us use bad words. I'm sorry that you heard us say things that were unkind. I'm sorry that you may have seen us become physical and try to hurt each other. That was not nice. X doesn't want to hurt me. I don't want to hurt them. And we do not want to hurt you. And we're going to be better for you. So that you can kind of help them clear the slate in their heart to know that as they're watching and as they are living through this experience, there's maybe room, at least with one parent, to be able to say what they're really feeling. And then once they are sharing what they're feeling, I think that's their opportunity to have a say. And if they're just not comfortable around someone, you treat that external new person the same way you would any other person. Relationships take time. Right. So we don't force them, but we do need to give them permission to give someone a chance, because if it is going to be long term, we don't want our kids going back and forth emotionally. So I love that question.
Yeah.
Is it fair to give kids a say so as well? I think it absolutely is. I don't think like a decision making type thing. I think it should be a component, but I think first and foremost, they need a safe space. First and foremost, and having a safe space is not just a place to talk, but emotionally where they know that you can manage their emotions. Because a lot of times our kids, they're not going to put more on us than they really think that we can manage when it comes to really heavy emotional things. And they don't need to carry those alone. You might not be able to take the emotion and the pain away, but they shouldn't have to carry it alone.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. No, yeah, you hit on that, because I was going to ask about the other aspect as far as introducing the child to the new person, but you touched on that right at the end, so that was good. Yeah, great question. Great question, Tim.
Yeah, great question.
So, okay, so
and I hope I answered it. Let me know, or if I went too far left field, because we can go back right if we went too far left.
Yeah.
So let us know in the comments if there's more. Just feel that they have a voice. Like, yeah.
No, for sure, because they are impacted, and our children,
this is their family too,
right? And our children are subject to their environment, and so a lot of times they deal with things, and they recognize things that we may not even think about, that they are thinking about or recognizing, or it's impacting them. Like if you think about when you were younger, a lot of things that maybe you were aware of, you know what I'm saying? Because I can remember things back when I was 3 and 4 years old. Certain things I tell my mom, and she was like, "Well, you old enough to know that?"
Yeah.
And I remember these things, you know what I mean? Because if you think about how observant children are, they're soakers, they're sponges, and so being able to, at some point, based on
their development,
right, development, and then
maturity,
even where you are and moving forward, there is going to have to be a sit down time to just say, hey, this is where we're at, this is what I feel and what I think, and I want to see what you think. And I think hearing from them and then responding in that way, based on what you hear them say, to actually help them process, even if it's something that they don't want.
Absolutely. And absolutely this too. We thought we made it clear, like kind of go without saying, but we want to explicitly say, if it's not a safe environment.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Of course, that's a whole different conversation.
For sure.
And we definitely believe in listening to your kids, believing them the first time, and always giving them the benefit of the doubt.
For sure.
Because they may not even understand why they don't feel a certain way, or why they do feel a certain way.
And I would want to know that too, because I've heard stories and have family that have dealt with things from new relationships, that they were being harmed by said other person. And there are so many stories of that kind of stuff happening, because nobody really talked to the kid or believed the kid, or at least said what is the reason why you feel this way about this person. You know what I mean?
Make them feel safe.
Right. And that matters too.
Do you think, before we move on really quick, do you think when we talk about family planning, your own personal family dynamic plays a role in what you think?
Yeah.
I was taught you don't speak unspoken to. I don't want to be like that. Absolutely.
Listen.
And we're, I would say we're similar. We're similar in a way with our kids. Like, we don't want them jumping into adult conversations, but we also, by the same token, we give them space to have a moment, even in moments of conflict. We do believe in taking turns and letting our kids, sharing the floor and sharing the airspace. We may have the final word, but it doesn't negate the fact that there may be some information that they need to share, and they need to know it's safe. They need to know that them sharing space with us or having a voice has nothing to do with us agreeing or believing or changing our mind about something. A safe space just means it's safe for me to share whatever it is on my heart before the conversation moves forward. So,
and there's always a root to it, to the why, like the why behind it, the what, right? The what. And I always ask what questions, what rather than why. Like, what's going on?
Tell us
what
why
happened? What's the
what's
reason?
the difference between the two? What is a what question and a why question?
A why question is harder to answer in such a way, because I think it really just because, or I might not understand why I feel this way, but maybe something happened, that the what, which is the what, that caused me to feel the way I feel. You know what I mean? Because we feel some type of way when something happens, right? Whether it's joy, somebody smiled at us, and now I feel happy. Somebody is always kind to me, and I have a moment that I experienced with them. But what I want to say is, I don't want to lose my train of thought when it comes to this. Lord, man, this was really important. It'll come back to me. But it's based on really the what, like understanding. Oh, yes. So children genuinely, especially when they're loved by the parent, the custodial parent, or just parents, period, they know when somebody cares about them. They know when people are genuinely for them, because that's how we nurture them. Like when they're nurtured, they know when something is off. Right. Even now, like, our children, Zion is 15, Zoe's 13 now, but over the last few years, and it was the same with Zion, with Aaron and Symphony when they were younger, if there's an adult that my son is kind of like, got his head, turned to the side, like, I don't know about that person. You know what I mean? I know that my children aren't like that with everybody. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like if people are cool and they straight and ain't nothing shifty about it. Hey, cool. Go about your way. It's cool. But they know that we conversate with people, and we especially me. So our kids are watching and they see things that we don't see. Just like even when I would do concerts and tours and things like that, she would see things that I wouldn't, because I'm focused on something else. But our children recognize when something is off, and that's really just a good thing for us to just lean into that and say, well, what's going on? What don't you like about this person? What did they do? You know what I mean? Were they acting funny? Were they, are they mean to you? Or you just, whatever. And just ask questions. Ask what questions versus why, because what will always is more likely to help us think about a situation. Maybe they scared me one time, you know what I mean? And I didn't like that, Right. Okay, well, how did they scare you? What happened? You know what I mean? Where were you? And it really helps them process a moment so they can explain that. Whereas why is just like, I don't know, I just don't, and then now we're back. And we've had that
feeling, because when a kid can't say specifically, well, why? Like, well, I don't know. Like, well, did they do something? Well, no, I just, I don't like the way, like, sometimes we forget kids are in the room sometimes. Just like we can do in a room full of people. And sometimes the kid that's down at the 2 or 3 foot level, all they doing is looking up, and they're watching people's eyes. They can hear the fake laugh. They can watch that nonverbal. They're watching body language. That's because of their vantage point.
Pucky.
Man, they see it. And it's the same thing as adults. Like, have any of you ever just been surrounded in a space and you just happen to be in your own, I'm not going to say own world, but you were in a position where you were in observation mode, and all you were doing was kind of watching, and you notice just little things. You might have noticed they could have been good too. You can notice positive things as well, but you notice something like, I saw the way that person like kind of side eye when they were talking. It looked a little skeptical. Like, why would they be? What is the sneaky eye about? Or this person touches their face a lot when they talk. Like, why are they so fidgety? It may not even be a bad thing. It could be something neurological, but you notice. Things like that have the potential to make kids say, I don't know this to be normal from my vantage point. Normal for me. So because it looks different, I'm not exactly comfortable. I can't explain why, but no, I don't want to go in the kitchen and get a slice of pound cake with them. That should be enough. True. That should be enough. Yeah. So their feelings are enough, whether they can communicate them or not.
Right.
I don't know why. I don't know what is also a reasonable answer.
I can't remember what it was. I just have a
So you see how all of this falls into family planning. We're trying to take this from surface level. How many kids do you want? I want a boy, I want a girl. What names do you like? I like this name. I like that name. Like, this is child's play. Okay. Those things will but those things will happen.
Very surface.
We're talking about like a holistic view of like what you think about family structure, what you think about the family that you foresee, the family that you may get, the family that you have had, and on both parties.
Right.
And before we jump into trying to build a family, are we even having this conversation? Are we talking about making us a family first?
Right. For real. Yeah, it starts with us.
It starts with us. That's why everything goes back to before we're like checking off, seeing ourselves in the future with someone. Do we even know who they are with their present and their past? Have we learned enough about their past, experienced them in their present to know if we can see ourselves with them in the future?
Yeah. No, that's real. That's real. I love it. I love that. Okay. That's good. Yeah, y'all keep the questions coming. Like y'all stay tapped in. I love it. I love that.
Yeah,
Thank y'all.
We got time tonight.
Yeah, listen. the next thing, to talk about, definitely career goals and relocation. That's important.
Yep.
Right. When you think about your career aspirations, or maybe, because maybe when you're dating, when you're already in it, you already know what each other are doing, but where do you see yourself? Or, nowadays, we're finding each other online and, falling in love that way. And now we're in two different locations. What do we feel about relocating? What's happening in your area? Are you willing to move? Relocate? Who's really like this kind of stuff? Talking about that is important. Or are you even open to relocating for new job opportunities and having just an open conversation about that? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, how would you talk to me about that now? Like, because you do a lot of things. Like, you're not just in ministry, but even your work with education. If you had an opportunity, you got a phone call and it was like, we want you here and this might be a thing, and you're like, I'm also passionate about that, and it was something you were deeply considering. Do not soundbite this, but if that was something you deeply considering, even at this point in our relationship, how do you think that conversation would go? Like, can you picture yourself having that conversation with me and kind of seeing what my response might be?
Yeah.
Like, what would that look like? How would you approach me even with that? Like, we're settled, and what would that look like?
I mean, first of all, of course, I have no issue with having that conversation with you. But I would definitely start with prayer and me like really thinking about the situation, right? The circumstance. Now, I was going to ask you, is this a clean slate, like not where we are now? Because I feel like right now where I am, like that kind of proposal right now isn't. I just
not interested.
Right. I'm not in that place. You know what I'm saying?
No, but we did it before. We've
been in places, right?
Way.
But we also, even in the last place, had opportunities to relocate and move. And I just knew it was a no there too. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't the time, it wasn't purposeful, whatever that was, right?
Right.
So I think and then we had a conversation about that. I shared, hey, this is what was offered. This is how I feel about it. What would you say? What would you feel? But I just felt like this was it was something to share, but it wasn't, if it's not purposeful, or I feel like it's something that is going to move me toward my purpose, I won't entertain it. I still may share with you, hey, this is something that that came up. But yeah, so to answer your question straightforward, I mean, we would talk about it and I will let you know what you think, because of course you have a perspective too, right? And something maybe, I'm a blind spot, or maybe something that I, overlooked or whatnot. But as far as that right now, no, I mean, let's talk about it. And I probably would just share where I am and how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And go from there. But right now,
no, I mean,
no,
that's not. No, it was a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Because it is one of those things, like two adults meeting, and they may already be kind of stable and in their career goals and talking about relocation. Now, sometimes it could be that when we meet or we're in the early stages of our relationship, that's not even a question. Like, neither one of us are entertaining any options outside of what we're doing career-wise or relocation-wise. But I think having a conversation like how much information would I need to know? Like, how can that impact us in the future?
Yeah, no, that's
because those are things like, for example, say a man or a woman has a career that's like, there's this promotion, and we might be believing God for one another for this promotion or this opportunity or this role or whatever it is, and it causes me to relocate. That's a conversation that we need to have, because either people are like, well, I don't think it's going to work, it's long distance, or it's the thing where like, well, I don't think I should move, I think you should move, and we're relocating.
Yeah,
those are real those are real things, like in real life that would happen. I think having those conversations like this, because this is one of the harder ones. You don't know why people are where they are and how they got to where they are and what it cost them.
Right. What it
and
costs.
So depending on where we're talking about going and what this opportunity is, that could be a big thing. And you could really have a solid relationship that could be potentially growing and building. But this is something that wasn't addressed. And so then it comes up and I got to make a decision in like 10 days.
Yeah.
I got to make a decision in 30 days because they come to move me. I have to do this.
Yeah.
Like we have to have this conversation. So this is just one of those things that we're saying. For all the things we could be talking about, let's talk about the things that really matter, learn enough and get enough information about people and where they are. Now, clearly, some careers, they're not causing you to move. But just saying, this is just an example. Yeah. This is one of those
because if it's an aspiration or something where this is where I am now, this is how, I mean, I'm getting experience in this and, you know, and possibly this is what I would like to do, you know, so even stuff
how
like
open
that
would you be to that
matters. Yeah,
it matters. And to this place, so like I've been waiting for this international job to open up in Italy. You know, it could be a 2-year job, you know, that I would have to be there. Would you be open to that? What would that look like? If they say no in the moment, it doesn't mean that, you know, oh, this is off the table, because if that never happens, you don't want to cut off the relationship right then and there, but you want to know that you've talked about it. Right. If that opportunity or that circumstance ends up occurring, we kind of know where each other stands, and then we can revisit it. Maybe things change, maybe things don't, but we've had this conversation and just kind of put it out there. Right. This is the kind of small talk I'm talking about, getting away from. And look, we have two adult kids. We have an invested interest, you know, in these conversations, but we're saying getting away from what's your name, what's your sign. Look, we don't do sign. Like we're believers. We believe in this. These are our values. This is what we want. This is what we're hoping for. This is who we are. This is where we come from. This is what I need. This is how I communicate. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is what I'm learning. This is what I want to learn. This is where I'm growing. This is where I want to grow. Mm-hmm. All of these kind of substantive conversations, I think, make for more balance and more, I think they strengthen a relationship to the potential that it could be, versus some of them other kinds of things, you know, that just, I don't know. I think they're time wasters. I think they end up being time wasters. Yeah. I think there's a place for them, but they should not be the priority. We need to kind of hone in on what really matters if we want to get serious about how we do relationship. And these are conversations that people should be having before they even consider a future, i.e. marriage and long-term pursuits. I think these should be happening first, not everything else flipped.
Right. Yeah. I mean, of course, that's real. I love that. I love that. Thinking about goals, aspirations, asking questions that you really want to know the answer to. You know what I mean? I think that's the key. Don't ask the question that you really don't want to know the answer to.
Factual.
You know what I mean? But ask questions that I feel like you need to know the answer to. Right. It's definitely important. Yes. And then leave room for growth. Like, especially if you know that you're talking to someone and you're building with someone that has a growth mindset. Yeah. Like, you know, a lot of these things, you're going to kind of already see some values and some of the things that they are pursuing, and they may see some of the things that you're pursuing. And so that's why we're talking about having these conversations, because it's important to know that if I have to make a move, if I have to transition, how is this going to impact our relationship? How is this going to impact how we do things, right? Right. Because, you know, I'm pretty sure you all know people who've been in long distance relationships. Maybe you all have experienced that. I know we were in a long distance relationship in college. And it's not, right. And it's one of those things that if you work it out and you all have an understanding and an agreement on what you expect and what you need from each other, then I think, you know, I believe those things can work. And sometimes there's a time frame and say, hey, this is what I'm doing for right now. I got to lock in for 2 years, and this is how things may be, but this is how it will be, right? This is how I'm looking for it to be. What do you think about that? You know, can we work this out? And, you know, prioritize the things that are important, spending time with each other, making sure that, you're communicating and there's no confusion. So that way nothing will get in between your growth and development of your relationship, you know, but having those conversations. Let me see. Okay, yeah, let me pull this up from Alicia, our sister Alicia. What about where you worship? Does the wife have to join where the man is a member, or can the man join the ministry where the woman is already a member? Some people believe the woman has to join the same local church as the husband instead of vice versa. That's good. Thank you, son. That's good. So I guess I'll
take a stab at it.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. When it comes to worship, I don't know. Personally, I feel like having conversations about, now, if we're married, I think it's that really has to, I think that really matters. You know what I mean? Because if we're meeting and I'm serving, if I'm serving at a ministry, and we meet and you're serving and you're sitting and, you know, and receiving from a ministry, you're getting that individual growth, like, you know what I'm saying, that relationship with God. So you're in a place that potentially is for the place that you're in life, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And so if for us, for instance, if you were at another church and I was at a church and we met, and we're getting what we need and we begin to progress in a relationship, then it's imperative that we have a conversation on where we're going to serve. And I think, first of all, we're already in church, so let's pray together. Let's really see where it's at. You come visit where I'm at. I may come visit where you're at, and we'll see what that dynamic is. What, you know, are you serving there? Am I serving here? Because if I'm serving in the house or you're serving in the house in a capacity that you have, some skin in the game, so to speak, and maybe you're, you know, doing something there, taking all that stuff into consideration, and going from there. I mean, I think it's definitely it's a great question. For me personally, I don't think that just because I'm over here, you need to come over here. I think we need to have a conversation about what we both need together and where we are and what that ministry is going to provide us as a unit. I think that matters. And if we have children, then there may be a children's ministry. Are our kids growing? Because I might, I don't have to depend on someone. I'm not going to depend on someone to help me grow spiritually. I'm going to study to show myself approved. I'm going to lock in with God and have my personal devotion. And so I can go to a church and still get a word. But what about our children? If children are involved, so how's the ministry of our children getting fed? So I think that matters too. So I think there's degrees to it, but I think a conversation is important. I think it's also good to visit and come check out the ministry. I don't think that's a bad thing either. And for anyone who doesn't understand that, hey, I'm taking the next step with my significant other, we're getting married, and these are the things that we're considering and praying about, and talking about. And I think you just have a conversation and you work it out in that way. Yeah, I think that covers everything. What do you think, Katora?
No, it covers it for me, because I think I agree with everything that you said. I think the key word was wife, but also the way you broke down, if we're both in church, that should put us in a position where we can pray with each other, that we can visit each other's churches and see if it's going to be the best place for us as a unit, as a husband and wife couple who's growing and building something together. I think that's super important. I don't think it's an automatic when you're dating. But I do believe that if God's word says that I will leave my house, if my husband can take me from my house, he can absolutely take me from my church, if that is God's will. Now, this is assuming that the man of God that I'm marrying, he wants what's best for me.
Right.
And it's not just about him staying at his church.
Right.
He wants what's best for me too, because he's going to get the best out of me if the best is being poured into me. So that means he's pouring into me and praying. This leadership needs to be able to pour into me and be praying and covering us. And and I need to have an active living and breathing relationship with the Lord as well. So that's if good. That is his concern for my life as his wife, then that's what he will want. And that is the conversation we'll have. That'll be the center of the decision that we make. That'll be the center of the prayer that we have. And it'll be the center of the decision that we ultimately make.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. Now, if I'm the pastor of a church,
yeah, right. And you have to know that man is not leaving. You're coming. Right. That's probably going to be an automatic kind of thing. Because the other thing is that we met young. My parents had a church. His parents had a church. Like my mom and her husband at the time, they were the pastors. They weren't just at a church, and his parents were actually the pastors. And we served in those spaces. Right. You know, we actually served in those spaces. We visited each other's churches, but I was serving and he was serving. And then at some point when we got married, sometimes we would go between the two because we trusted, what was happening in both places. There came a time when I was just solely, with him at his parents' church. And then there came a time when we both left his parents' church and we found a church that suited both of us in the stages of development that we were in. And as God was leading us in that season, and we did that together. Right. And so I think that was just important to just throw out there. Yeah, I think you covered it well.
No, it's good to hear it.
And that's how I feel like you felt about me and how you've always felt about my walk with Christ as well.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate that. It made sense.
For sure. Because it's a different dynamic when you are locked in to marriage and what you need from a community of faith.
Right.
If you're at a church and there's, not too many other married couples and families there, but you have a family, then that may impact your family in that way.
Right.
And so you just had that conversation and go from there. But that's a really great question. Thank you, Alicia. Hopefully that helped. Well, yeah, you did say that did help. So great.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Yeah. No, this is good.
Keep them coming. We'll do the best we can. You're just talking with the Bostons.
For sure.
It's just our thoughts and opinions, right? Yeah. And if they help, then amen.
Yeah.
So keep them coming. And thank you for your comments, even the ones that are not questions. Thank you for your comments too, because it also is helping drive and
that's true.
Keep the conversation moving forward as well.
Most definitely.
What else we got?
This next one is a big one.
Oh, snap!
It's a big one. Right. So so just to keep things in perspective, right? We're talking about conversations that that you have to have before you say I do. I think these are important.
Yeah.
Conversations. So financial management. Understanding where you are and the other person is in their individual financial situations, including debt.
Uh-oh.
Whether it's college loans.
To log off now. Hold on.
It's no, they're gonna stay with us. You're gonna stay with us.
Look.
Whether it's college loans, whether it's credit cards, what does that look like? You know what I mean? Now, this is one of those things where I would say
talk about
this may be, I don't know, you tell me if this is a conversation that you have. No, because you got to say you got to have it before you say I do.
You got
Because I was gonna say
this is not first date. This is close.
Stuff. Yeah, this definitely ain't first date stuff.
Because that'd be weird.
This is your your business.
Don't be weird.
You know what I'm saying?
Don't be weird.
Unless it's like that, but definitely understanding financial situations if someone is in debt, hide your credit. You know what I mean? Having that conversation.
Keedren, can we just say this?
Your spending habits. Yeah, go ahead.
Y'all tell us. You're not going to get somebody. Well, we're going to unpack this. You're not going to get somebody to say, I have horrible spending habits.
Right.
I have a ridiculous amount of debt. And also that is subjective, right? As far as dollar amounts. Yeah. You're not going to get that. This is the kind of conversation that can be akin to or likened to having a conversation about medical history. It is very personal. It is something that you accumulate all by yourself.
Gotta talk about that. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This is one of those things that is highly personal.
For sure.
But there are questions that you can ask.
Yeah.
Right? That can come up. Because I want to know, like, I think if you understand this about debt, this will help. So let's just give some little clues about things just to know about debt. Not all debt is bad in terms of what it is. Now, consumer debt. Consumer debt is very different than having student loans or a mortgage or a car. That's like, I would even venture, car could almost be considered consumer because you should have a vehicle that you can afford that is within your means and your standard of living. But consumer debt, like credit cards for overspending, irresponsibly spending, lines of credit that you shouldn't have, like different stores that are just kind of getting out of control for you. And your interest rates are ridiculous. Like those kinds of things are harmful pieces of debt. And you want to try to manage those as early as possible. The easiest and I think most honest way to talk about these kinds of things, if you don't have mortgage debt and most of your debt is strictly consumer debt, if you don't have, school loan debt or whatever that is, or you're paying on it, you can express things that just show your level of integrity. I'm actively paying on credit card debt. I believe in having it, but I also believe I've learned some things about it. I'm learning to spend better and be more responsible with my debt. I had, there's some things I know now in this phase of my life that I didn't know in that phase of my life. But I think before you say I do, there's going to have to be some more information. But I think initial conversations about financial management need to be had because here's the thing. We have two things. And our son Aaron told us about this. Now he's in college. He has a job. He pays rent. He pays bills and he has a job. And he had a situation where he really needed to set a budget for his leisure spending with a young lady that he was, friends with. And so in setting those boundaries, there was some tension because he was taught by his father to not listen, no matter what you do, your leisure is your leisure, but those bills are the responsibility of you. This is not about you having to put a roof over anybody else's head, about you having a family or having a wife. Every man needs to work and every man needs to pay his own bills, pay them on time, and be able to afford the lifestyle that he is creating for himself. You do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do. I got that from my mom, and we've instilled that in all of our kids. Okay, so when he got to that place and that wasn't enough, that caused some tension in that relationship. So here's the thing. Here's my point on that. Either you want somebody who's fiscally responsible or you don't. Because someone who is fiscally responsible may have a budget outline. It could be this big or this big, but they have a budget. They understand where their finances are going. They understand the value of a dollar. If you want them to be responsible, you have to be able to respect financial boundaries as well.
Yeah.
Not just take it as, because they don't spend, they must be broke, and I ain't got time, and I don't want to do this with the broke person. Money and yes, either way.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things that we're seeing, and that's my beef with social media influencing these conversations, because either a man is considered broke if he's not ready to drop, 2 bands on a bag for you in the dating stage. I mean, are you? All right, y'all. Like, come on now, grow up.
Yeah.
But he's considered broke if he doesn't want to do that. But if he's saving $2,000 to pay off debt or to put down on a future home for a family that he foresees himself having, or he wants to make investments, or, just other responsible things that need to be done to maintain an adult lifestyle.
Right.
We need to be respectful of that. And same thing with women. We have women who are doing it on their own, and they have money, and they're trying to work out what kind of debt they deal with and how they pay their bills and take care of their own way. So this, can you see, this feels very personal for people.
Because it is.
But there are ways to try to understand how they think about their money, and how they have conversations around money and finances and career and their goals will tell you a lot. But you need to have these kind of conversations, because before you say I do, you need to know that if you dream of you and this person being in this lovely house on a certain side of town or living in a certain state, you need to know that they already have a foreclosure on a home or have filed bankruptcy, and you're likely not going to be able to qualify for that in this season of your life. It's fair for you to know that.
For sure. And that goes, that goes.
And it goes both ways.
Yeah.
It's fair for you to know that. That's not intrusive. For
sure. And even thinking about the, you kind of touched on it real quick, as far as relocation and stuff like that. If this financial situation ain't on point, and y'all plan to move in together or move together, this is definitely something that needs to be discussed.
When you're married, we're talking about moving in when you're married.
Yeah, of course. But having a financial plan together, like how you're going to manage your finances as a couple.
Come on,
that's important. You know what I'm saying? So making sure that I understand where I am. If I have these accounts and maybe these habits that maybe I've developed, or maybe I manage now, how are we going to manage them together? Is it just something that you're going to take care of? Whatever that looks like,
what's the
have
plan?
the conversation about what that plan is and how we're going to work together to grow, because as a couple, it is, it's a pot. I feel like, for us, it has been like that. Like what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine. And we're going to manage it together, and we're putting in together. We're taking out together. We're managing it, and over time we have evolved in even how we have done that. You know what I mean? And because it's not easy to have conversations about finances when you're struggling, or when you want something that, the other person said you can't get, or maybe if you're getting too much of something that
and they feel like you're
and they feel like,
or you done turn hours into mostly yours.
Right.
Like,
we
were watching a video of a couple, and they, what was it called? What's My Rich Life or something like that. But this was a couple, they had, joint accounts. They're working together as a family and had kids and all that stuff. And they were both working. But the wife's issue was that the husband was always spending money, and he wouldn't always tell her. He was admittedly, like, he would sneak and buy things. He would hide his things.
Yeah.
He would buy $200 shoes, not tell her, not ask her, not mention them, multiple pairs. Yes. And like he would try to hide them before she came in, and like she would just see him with new shoes. Eventually she learned where he was spending his money most of the time. It became an issue because he felt like, I make money, I work, I should be able to buy these things. And she didn't disagree. She agreed that, yes, that's fine. You do deserve these things, but it's not in alignment with what we say we want to build for our future. So I don't want to be depriving myself. And I'm kind of in the same way, right? Like our conversations are like, we want it to be fair. We have open conversations about how we're spending money and when we're on a budget for certain things, or what that budget. And again, your budget can be this or this, but budget just means I have some boundaries in my finances.
Right.
And it sounded like what they were describing was that he was operating outside of those boundaries, outside of that budget for which they had agreed upon. And it was causing some issues, and it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. And so, I think even at the end, I don't know that they actually resolved it. Like he stopped buying as many, but her thing was,
he had a whole garage full of new stuff. He bought microwaves.
Yes.
And a lot of stuff that he had was still brand
new
stuff that he just didn't use.
And she's like, I work just as hard as you, and I'm sacrificing. He's like, well, you don't have to sacrifice. I tell you to shop. I tell her to shop. And she's like, that's not the point.
Right. Yeah.
Like the point is, if we want to get to the next level, what are we willing to sacrifice? What are we willing to give up? now? What are we see? We want to live like other people live. This is not my quote, but we want to live like other people live, but we're not willing to do what they do to get where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you can want excellence, but you also have to be excellent too in these things if that's what you want. It's not enough to keep talking about it. And that was one of her biggest gripes, that we've been going through this for years, because he asked that question, like, how long has this been an issue in your marriage? And she said, it's been years, it's been forever, and nothing is helping. But I love him, and I do believe that he deserves these things. It's just, how do we move forward? And basically the answer is you've got to be disciplined. Either you want this or you don't.
Yeah.
And so some of those,
she was sticking to her plan as far as the adjustments,
and it just didn't feel fair. It was like, it's not that I need to spend more money. I don't want to spend more money to make it fair. I want you to spend less so that we're aligned.
Right.
And
so create that plan.
Great.
Talk about that plan. Create it. And I'm sorry.
No. You're good. Because creating the plan is important. It's not just one plan. We've had 20 different plans.
Yeah.
Because they've evolved as we've evolved.
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
And definitely manage them together as a couple, and how that's going to work. Let's look at this. Finances and health are the areas we need to work on. Being healthy, healed, and to not be a burden in a relationship. I will consider it part of becoming whole and bringing our best selves to the table.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's good. That's right. I love that. We're going to talk about that as well. Like, as far as I definitely want to talk about health and wellness. This next one I think is good too, because financial conversations will cause you to argue
among other things
when you think about it. So you definitely got to have conversations about communication and conflict resolution. Like, how are we going to talk? Like, how are we going to communicate with each other to handle disagreements? Like, what does that look like? Also talk about maybe potential issues that may maybe have come up during your past relationships, or just things that maybe some pet peeves of things that have maybe that
impacted you.
Yeah, that have impacted you, right? And we're gonna do something soon. We may have like a special
we have a
Zoom or something like that we might do, because we definitely have a protocol when it comes to having a conversation about treatment and what that looks like when it comes to a proactive conversation in relationships on how we're going to treat each other. But I think it's definitely important to have that conversation and say how we're going to work things out with each other, to have these conversations, because if we come to a place where there's a conflict, we got to communicate. Right. So how does that work? Proactively is, I would definitely say, is always the best way to do things. Like, in the moment, it's not ideal or productive to point out what somebody else is. I mean, now you can still address it, but I think sticking with maybe what happened in that moment and giving it some time to say, if there's been a pattern, then wait for a time where you not
insert that example.
Yeah, you're not, going crazy, and it's proactive, where you're not arguing in that time. Hey, I just want to talk to you about, some things that's been on my mind, on my heart about these things, and I just kind of want to have a conversation about it and express those things then. But I think it's definitely important off top to think about the things that get to you, on how you want to, and talk about how you want to be treated in a relationship. And I'm not to the point of like this whole list of like, I need somebody to spoil me and take me out to dinner every week and all stuff like that. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. I don't even want to talk about that. I'm talking as far as how you are made to be, how you're made to feel. Sure, right. If someone is condescending and making you feel like you're not important, or making you feel like you are ignorant or don't know any, like those kind of things. And like, I don't like when people talk to me this way or make me feel this way, expressing that type of stuff based on maybe some past experiences. But I'll pause there because I don't want to talk too much on. I kind of want to hear what you think about that when it comes to having a conversation about conflict resolution and how we need to communicate and handle those things. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's good to have the conversation, and I think that the conversation about these two topics, and I think that what's going to be more telling is how you actually experience them. Now, this is for the mature listener only. This is not starting some mess to be like, I was just testing you and I'm trying to see something. I'm talking about real organic, because a conflict doesn't have to mean we're fighting, yelling, screaming, and arguing. It could mean that we have strong disagreement about something that matters to both of us. And the key word is both of us.
Yeah.
If it just matters to one of us, it's not necessarily an argument. This is an expressed need that needs to be communicated. And then one person probably needs to be talking, the other one needs to be listening and trying to gain clarity.
Right.
So that's not the caveat for it. But you won't find that, because I guarantee you that if you're in the early stages of dating or dealing with someone in a relationship and you ask them, well, what are your thoughts on communication and conflict resolution? They're going to say, I think they're going to say the right things for the most part. I think conceptually, we know that resolving conflict, i.e. conflict resolution, is important. And we all believe that communication is key. You can't have a good relationship without communication. Right. Yeah. I think anybody can break that down for you, and you can sit across the table or on the phone and say, oh, yes, I agree. Yeah, that's good.
Like we both
agree, but not everyone knows how to do it.
Yeah.
And so you'll find out the truth about this conflict when things come up. So usually you won't find out when it comes up with you. You'll have opportunities to see how it's managed when it's not you. Yeah. When they come home from work, right? Because y'all are just dating. You're not married. You're not just arguing with them back and forth all the time. But when they come home from work and they say such and such coworker XYZ, listen long enough to see how did they manage their perspective on how they explained that to you. How did they sound? What was the tonation in their voice? Like, did they get super excited? Like, sound very angry, aggressive? Was there bad language used? All of those things are going to tell you something before it even comes to you. And that's man or woman. The way they deal with their family. If you're at a family engagement, they could be showing you off, but and you're having a good time with them. But there's an issue with a cousin or uncle or aunt or a sibling or a parent, and something blows up. Any situation, you want to be mindful of all of those things kind of moving forward. And because this is one of those things that it gets people every time. Like you said, everybody wants it. Everyone knows that we need it, but not everyone knows how to do it.
That's true.
And I think you need a picture too. This is part of that getting to know you, of what they really look like in action. And they need to see what you look like in action.
Right.
And listen, in the heat of the moment, you won't be able to fake it. Now,
that's true.
Because it's just going to happen. Like, and we do believe in proactive conversations. So some things will come up, but if something comes up and it's a surprise, you won't have the luxury of having had that proactive conversation. So how do you intend to resolve it maturely, responsibly, and respectfully? I think that needs to be the thing. Yeah. If we're ever out in public and we disagree on something, it's important for me that the person that I'm dealing with to not make a scene and get loud and put all our business out in the street while we in this mall.
Embarrass you off
while we're in this restaurant.
Embarrass you.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. I think that is a practical thing that we can say, here's my expectation concerning that. Yeah. When it comes to communication, I do believe that one of my expectations is that regardless of whichever one of us bring up this concern, we will agree to be fair and let each person have a turn.
Right.
And we'll listen. I think I said voice tone. I think all of that matters. You can tell someone's getting angry or the conversation's being heightened if they start using things like sarcasm, right? Or just saying little slick stuff, or like you said, throwing in stuff from the past that they've been bottling up and they never shared. Mm-hmm. You won't be able to manage all of that in a conversation. I'm going to say for most women, I'm not speaking for all of us the same way I'm not speaking for or against all men or even my husband in particular. But sometimes when as a woman, I have been guilty of having a list of things because I thought it was being kind and ladylike, not to mention everything as it was happening, because I'm trying to show that I'm reasonable and that I can adapt. But then in the heat of the moment, if something else happens that is a reminder of some past things that are related to it, bringing it up and listing it like a set of bullet points takes the conversation in a whole nother direction. Because rather than them trying to address, or rather than my husband trying to address and really listen to and soak into my thoughts on the situation at hand, he's trying to recall what you mean when I said what? Where was we at? Well, I didn't say that. When so now his mind, he's like, wait a minute, I heard what you said, but you had said this. And vice versa. And I'm like, I didn't say, when would I say that? I wouldn't say that because I remember that day. And I actually said this, now we're off track, and it's going down the unproductive rabbit hole of conversation. And before you know it, you're in a place that's so far from where you started, and you don't have a resolution from the thing that you brought up from the past or the thing that you need to be addressed in the future.
That's good. That's good. I think Miss Diane has a question too. Is like if we disagree on treatments, when it comes to treatment, I can't tell her how I'm going to treat her. Like she has to determine how she wants to be treated, right? Mm-hmm. Same way with me, and expressing that, and also respecting how she wants to be treated. Mm-hmm. It has to be a mutual agreement to say, okay, I understand that you don't want to feel this way, so I'm going to do my best to not cross that line, or to help you, or to help, you know what I mean? And do my best to make sure I don't ever make you feel this way. You know what I mean? And I think that's how it needs to be, because I mean, for somebody to tell you how they're going to treat you, and if you don't want
how
that,
to be treated is wrong.
Yeah. So just having that understanding, but also respecting each other's.
What's an example of like a treatment that we've had with each other?
I think, for instance, is if we, especially for one, and I think our children have taken this on too. When it comes to, as we're communicating, even in public, if there's something that we need to discuss, we don't do those things in public.
Right.
You know what I mean? We'll wait till we get in the car, or till we get in the house, you know what I'm saying? Because we won't put each other, I definitely don't want to be put in a position to be dishonest with you how I feel, or not be able to fully express how I feel with you, because other people may not understand our conversation.
You're putting people in our business.
Right.
That's what it boils down
but
to.
Then also putting you on the spot, or put me on the spot.
Right.
And I can't really share with you how I really feel right now, because it's really no concern to anybody else. They can't, we're a mixed company. They're not going to understand context, not necessarily nothing disrespectful, but this isn't the time and the place, right? And so understanding where we can have conversations is definitely important. Not being put on the spot, and not feel like I'm being, because definitely don't want to be embarrassed in front of people. Definitely wouldn't want you to be like that. Did we skip one?
Yeah, I think this one. Medical conversations too. What if your treatments are different?
Yeah, I think we mentioned that.
Okay, if they're different.
Yeah.
So if our view on treatments are different. Yeah. And medical conversations. You had something about healthcare.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that a little bit more? What was your thought, or were you just commenting on something in terms of healthcare?
Healthcare treatments. Is
that the same? Let us know more. You don't want to go
too far off. So that, but because
we definitely worked with each other, we have to agree on healthcare treatment, and him knowing like my thoughts on certain things within the medical field.
No, for sure.
And knowing his, like also knowing like for example, I know which medications he's allergic to. So if he was ever in a situation, right, if he was ever in a situation where a medical facility couldn't, in an emergency, right, couldn't access his medical records, it would be really important for me to know that he can't have a certain medication, or he shouldn't. And it's the same thing for him with me, he knows what my allergies are and what things, and he also knows what medications I don't prefer to have in my body.
Yeah.
And that's a personal thing, but these are conversations that he and I have had.
And I think that's the key, to have a conversation about it, get to the what, like, what is it about it that, you know, that you don't like about it, or what is the issue, and ask these what questions concerning whatever you may disagree with. And just have a conversation about it. I think that it starts there, and then, you know, you take that journey and see where it leads. But also, and I shared this with our youth today too, always understanding the where it's coming from. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to focus on what's true. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you know this person genuinely cares about you, and you genuinely care about that person, y'all have that understanding, then even when you have a difference of opinion, if you can just remember what's true and know that this person cares about me, so now I can kind of process it a little different, and they're not coming for my character, but they're really trying to help me. They're caring for me and not coming for my character or criticizing my character based on my decision, you know. And
that's a great point to make.
I think that's a good way to look at it.
And these are all things that you should be talking about before you say I do.
For sure.
Especially like for me as a mom, him, you know, dealing with our first childbirth together, and that, you know, what is it called? The maternity ward, and that kind of care. There were some things that we both learned about the kind of treatment I preferred in the future, and what my experience was like. Even things he's like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, that's good to know. Medical decisions that I have made. We years, I don't know if we saw this on a show or a movie, but there was a couple that thought that they were not able to reproduce together. And come to find out, either the man had a procedure done, or the woman was having some type of procedure or taking a medication that was prohibiting them from doing that. And there was not medical transparency between them. That's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah.
These are things these are things you should have a conversation about. And it was deceptive. They were keen to get married to one another, and they thought they had an understanding, but they didn't have this conversation. And so some deception crept in. Now, why is this important? My husband needs to know if I'm on any type of medication. And if my husband I need to know everything that's gone on his body. I know that when he was a teenager, I know if he had a procedure done, if he had dental work done, if he had a surgery, if he had x-rays. I know those things. I'm not going to share them, but I know those things. And he knows those things about me. In an emergency situation, it's important for me to be able to talk and speak on his behalf, knowing what I know about him, and vice versa. So that's where you want some medical transparency. If this is a person that you're going to share your life with, that's a part of the communication piece. Am I willing to share this? Come on, health and wellness, transparency, you know, and that's another thing. That's why I said that finance and that health, they feel very, very personal. But if we're talking about saying I do, like, what's more personal? It is.
You're gonna be my person. If I'm gonna be your person,
if you're gonna be my person,
then we definitely gotta get personal. We gotta be personal. That's key. Being honest. And open. Shall I say open and honest about your medical history, medical, and your individual health, and how you, you know, how you are. These are conversations that are important, that matter.
Knowing the real
hereditary. I'm sorry, hereditary conditions as well. You know, it's something that that kind of stuff. There are some things that are hereditary in that way, and there are things that we at least bring it up to talk about it, because if we have to change the way we
when you're
having those conversations
knowing
about all of that.
I think because it matters. It's not claiming anything on yourself or for your family or for your children, but it is important to know some of that family history a little bit. And I'm not 100% sure why that can be so scary for people.
Mm.
I've never heard of an instance where someone said this is a deal breaker because, too many people in your family done had diabetes, or too many people in your family have a lazy eye. I don't know where that, I've never heard someone say that became a deal breaker for them building a life together. And so I think we just need to kind of destigmatize having conversations that really matter.
Yeah.
Because there were some things, like, honestly, if I wanted to tell him when we first got together, I didn't know, because we were so young. These were not conversations that adults in my world were necessarily having with kids or nieces or grandchildren.
Right.
There were certain things that I didn't learn until I got older, and there were certain things that he didn't learn about his family until he got older. But whatever information you do have, it's important to know. It's mainly important for you to know, because I don't think that just because someone in your family had high cholesterol that you're going to get high cholesterol. I think that you can get high cholesterol the same way anybody can get high cholesterol. And it's from having a poor diet of high cholesterol, things that cause high cholesterol. You can be predisposed to it, meaning that the propensity is there. It's likely that if you follow these same behavioral, lack of health, lack of care, and poor diet, you could also end up with that. But that's like anybody else.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to know, because those things do matter. There is a part of my heritage where I know that I grew up with very holistic remedies for health, or just treatment, or just for overall wellness. Those things matter to me. I grew up with them. I still practice them. I practice them on my kids. And by practice, I don't mean for it to sound weird, but I am the mom who will make homemade soup and put certain herbs and spices in it, to break up mucus in the chest. I will ginger tea and lemon, golden milk, onion on the bottom of my baby's feet, so to break a fever through the night, so that they don't wake up with the chills, different things like that. I keep Vicks in my house. I believe in ginger ale for upset stomach.
No witchcraft stuff.
Nothing like that. Right? We ain't stirring up no concoctions. Nothing like that.
Yeah.
But that's why I wanted to say, when I say practices, this is what I mean.
Yeah.
We ain't doing none of that over here. It's all Jesus up in here. We do all that stuff because we believe that medicine is food, according to the word of God.
Right.
Food can be your medicine. And so for medicinal purposes, there are things that I prefer to do before engaging in Western medicine. But that's the conversation that my husband and I have had, and he's grown to know that about me. I done helped him break some fevers. I done had doctors asking him how we broke a flu, in him years ago. And I'm telling him, my secrets. He's like, how'd you do that? Or, how did that work? What was the recipe? So, these are conversations that we're having. But even in this phase of life, as we have gotten older together, there's still conversations that we have. We both want to be fit and healthy.
Yeah. It's about kind of accountability too.
Yeah.
Like
Talk
accountability is important. So when you have these conversations, being able to be open, share what's going on, so that way we can hold each other accountable, and to because of course we want to live a long life together.
And
you know
healthy.
what I mean? And so of course a long, healthy life together. And when I know when we know what we need to know about each other's health and how we feel about it, then we can hold each other accountable, grow with each other, keep each other healthy, and that's important. That's important.
Yep, I like it.
Definitely want to maintain a healthy lifestyle, do the best we can, and some things that I need to know. I've learned some things that I'm glad I've learned. That I still apply to my life, and
You're
I
definitely
know what
one
to
of
do.
My teachers.
So. That's key, but that comes from a conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
That comes from talking about it. So
cute,
talk about health and wellness. God bless you.
Yeah, what we got now.
And then of course we've kind of touched on this a little bit too, like throughout this conversation. But definitely understanding if you have different beliefs, right?
Yep.
I mean, this is a conversation that you should have before you say I do.
Mm-hmm.
Understand if you have different religious or spiritual beliefs, talk about it, discuss how you're going to incorporate these things in your relationship and in your life, and maybe some potential conflicts that may come from your backgrounds and your beliefs, right? Because, you know, if y'all have grown up, more than likely, you know, you've probably grown up in different religious religious beliefs or household, or maybe not in any, you know.
Right, that's fair too. Yes, I'm not any.
Right, but talking about that and seeing how each other feels about those things, and see what you're going to do to move forward when it comes to that, because that matters. That's a big deal. So having that conversation,
it's a huge deal.
Yeah, you know. So thank God, you know, we both grew up in Christian households. Now I done been in churches. I done been, you know, Kojic, Baptist, Pentecostal, you know, throughout my years. You know, as when my parents got saved, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and they've grown, like, and then depending on where we work, especially coming from Colorado, there were churches that, you know, we went to in Colorado. I think the first church, and my mom would have to confirm it because I was probably about 8 or 9 years old. I want to say it was it may have been I forget what. All I know is we had the hymnals.
Yeah.
You know, we'd have to go to the pages, and you know, everybody would say, turn the page, you know, 295, and we there, everybody singing from the hymnal. So from there, you know, definitely been Kojic Pentecostal churches. So I've kind of grown up in a lot
Baptist
of different, all of those. Yeah. But it was my mother and father's, you know, just their spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And so I, you know,
same, I can relate.
Kind of grew up in that way. My grandfather was a Baptist preacher.
We talked about that early on too.
Yeah.
This is part of that conversation.
So having these conversations are important about religion and beliefs. What are you going to say? Go ahead.
Yes. No, I have a scripture.
Yeah.
For this, 2 Corinthians 6:14-6. Do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? What harmony is there between Christ and Belial? What does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? What agreement is there between the temple of God and idols? For we are the temple of the living God. As God has said, I will live with them and walk among them. I will be their God and they will be my people. And so I think that about hangs it up for us.
Yeah.
Because God's word is clearly saying, and this is only if you believe God's word. If this is not for you, it's not for you, and that's okay. Yeah. But we do believe God's word. It is the governing moral compass by which we live by. Yeah. But when he says specifically, what harmony is there between Christ and Belial? What fellowship can light have with darkness? He is clearly saying anything that is not a believer in God is the opposite. And so for us, it was important that we knew flat out that not only did we believe in the same God in terms of religion, but we believe the same things about him. So not just believing in God, but also believing in Jesus Christ was important for us. Believing that that Jesus and the Holy Spirit were each person. You say he is. That Jesus and the Holy Spirit are all a part of the Trinity. They are God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. Those were also foundational things that we had to come to agreement, that we understood, that we believed the same thing on, because I always grew up believing in the Holy Spirit and praying in tongues and just revelation of the Holy Spirit, believing that Jesus was birthed through a woman, did die, did rise again, is living in heaven, does live in us as the Holy Spirit, is the comforter. And God is the Father.
And he will return.
And Jesus Christ will return. Yeah. And so all of those things are fundamental to our core beliefs. And so outside of that, you know, we could say, well, I've heard people say, you know, you can't let things like that come between a good relationship. And my only pushback on that is that it would not be a good relationship with me if I had to believe what I believe by myself.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's not about letting it.
And it's not about it being good either.
It will. It's not about letting it. You know what I'm saying? Like there's really no choice. Like you can only get so far.
Right.
You know, when it comes to
your beliefs
that,
matter.
your beliefs, if
About anything,
you know, for sure,
right? Your beliefs about anything have the potential
yeah.
to come between an otherwise like quote unquote good relationship.
Yeah.
You know, if one of you believes in, I don't know, not having animals in the home. There are families that like one spouse I know particular doesn't believe in having any animals in the home. And the other spouse grew up with pets. And he's like, I love pets. I want a dog. I had a dog when I met them. And I sacrificed my dog and still wants a dog to this day, still wants a pet, wanted his children to grow up with a pet. And that it is, and for all these years, it's still a constant thing that comes
But
up.
you have a conversation about it,
you know,
and you, because it's one of those things you do have to see how conflict may arise based on
these disagreements.
Yeah, or just how you have, you know, what you believe or what you think.
Yeah. And that's just on the low end. That's just like a simple example.
Yeah.
But if something that simple could be a constant like 12 or 15-year argument that comes up and we're like legit fighting about it, that goes to show anything that you can disagree on, that you feel that strongly about, has the potential to cause some level of conflict. And talk about it, don't talk about it, but either way, anything that you believe opposite or contrary to someone else, it has the potential to be, you know, unreconcilable conflict down the road. So it's good to have these conversations early.
For sure. Let me see. Then we have a comment. Okay, yeah. Let me see. Oh, yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Why would you choose to believe by yourself?
Right.
That's good. No, that's Miss Diane. That's Miss Diane. Yeah, that's real. There's no fun in that.
No.
This is another thing right here that's important. That it's important to talk about these things are your support networks. So your friends, your relationships with your family is important. Like to talk about this because sometimes that dynamic changes. You know, have been relationships where, you know, people have moved away from their family to be with someone before marriage and things did not work out. And then now they're in this whole other place and this person ain't even with them anymore. You know, there are so many situations that have turned out like that. You know what I mean? And so talking about your support networks and how important they are, or the lack of the lack of support networks too, you know. But I think it's important to have, you got to have a support network and recognizing what that is. First of all, you know, I know that's probably a whole nother topic, because you got to have people in your life that can be down for you and really help you through life other than significant others. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to have these meaningful relationships. And if you do have those, talking about those are important. And how you plan to maintain them. And especially because once you get married, things do change, right? Because now you're spending more time building your relationship, especially at the beginning of your marriage. You locked in. Yeah, it's like, you know, this is our new dynamic. Right. But how is that going to work with your family, with your in-laws, with your relatives, with the people that are close to you? How is that dynamic going to be maintained?
Or if you have kids,
right? Yeah, all of that stuff needs to be discussed. Like, how are we going to maintain these things? Right. And of course, you know, the children, I mean, that goes with the conversation of talking about the family.
They could be grown.
That's true.
They could be grown adult kids.
For sure.
That are with you, and now they're being reintroduced, maybe, you know, spending time differently. So like you said, I think just budgeting your time, but also being honest with them right up front. Like, I'm getting into another venture, and it doesn't mean that these relationships mean less. It just means that this one means a lot. And so I need to invest. I need to spend some time, because we're still building relational equity with one another. And so we're going to spend more time together. Whereas I used to maybe be at everything on the weekends. I may not. I may spend more time at home, and that is reasonable. Anyone. And that's the thing too. I think when you're married, your support network should include this. When we say network, it sounds really big. It could be really small. But it needs to include this. It needs to include people that are not just for you individually, but they're for your marriage.
For sure.
You don't just need to have people that are for you, but don't like your wife.
Right.
Or for you, but don't like your husband.
Yeah.
Or come on, are we still mature on here? I think, let's, for the mature audience, let's just go here. Who is jealous of your new relationship? They might not be able to go with you in this next season.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to make them a great support for you.
So you would say that's a conversation with your family and your friends about the relationship that you're in. So it's definitely two conversations.
Because if I know that I have, it is. I think it is. It's on both sides, because you're doing something new and you're maintaining, a seasoned relationship that matters a whole lot to you too. And if I catch wind that as a married woman, any of my friends has a problem with my husband, that's a problem for me. One, I need to understand why. That's number one. But if I can't understand why, and it's not obvious to me why that is going on, or if there's because if I don't know why, I can't even imagine reconciliation. Yeah. Right. Or a conversation that I could feel.
Yeah. What is the reason? Yeah.
So if I don't no, that cannot be it. That is not mature, respectful, or responsible as a friend to me in my new marriage. So that can't be. I have to really know what's up. But if you don't like him, I also know that you're not somebody I can come talk to, because chances are, in a pinch, or I'm going through something like a newly married someone, and I want somebody to talk to, I can't talk to you. I cannot talk to you. You're not going to give me good advice. You might speak against my marriage, and I might not be planning on leaving my marriage. I might just be upset and all of that. When we first started out married, I did not talk to a single person about anything that was going on in our marriage, any disagreements. Yeah. I kept those things to myself. I had a journal. I talked to God. I prayed. I asked God to help me to be the wife that my husband needed. And I took it from there. And guess what? We have a 23-year relationship, a 17-year marriage. Yeah. That worked for me, because at the time, if I didn't have that, I couldn't manufacture it, but I surely wasn't going to be talking to anybody that I thought could use any of the intel or any of my emotions against my marriage, not just my husband, but if you come against my husband and we're married, you're coming against my marriage. I got a whole problem with that. And it doesn't matter who it is. Yeah. It does not matter who it is at all. There's nobody that could matter more about. It was very important in those early stages that I protected the sanctity and our privacy, that marriage. Now, as we grew, we built a network together of friends and loved ones that we felt like we could trust and confide in. And we didn't need to do, by then, we didn't really have those kind of conversations with them. But one thing we did know is that we knew who was for us and who was not.
Right. And that's really good. That's really good.
For both of us.
That's so true. Yeah. And before you even say I do, understanding how people feel about your relationship now and the potential of it and where it's going, because that's key too. Like, how do they feel? Because they be at your wedding, you say yes, after you say I do, and they be at your wedding all salty, but it having happens. It does probably more time than we realize. But with this significant other, the person that you feel drawn to and that you see a future with, sitting down and just having a conversation about your family, that dynamic, and how you feel about that, listening to them and how they feel about their family dynamic, who's special to them. I mean, because you may have some, he may, hey, I'm really close to my brother, and this is what we do every year or every other year. We go on a fishing trip, or we do this special thing that this is what we do, and we've done it for years.
Yes.
And what does that look like? Right. Because, I was single sometimes when we would go out, but I'll tell you now, when we do it this time, things change. He know how I feel about you, so we're not on no, singles guy trip or whatever. Like, it's about us, and so just having an understanding of what that looks like, but something that you don't want to change, but you want to incorporate and include them in this thing, because these are people that are special to me. I feel this way about my mother and my sister, or my family members or my friend. I only got one best friend, like whatever that is, you know what I'm saying? Like I got a few brothers that these are the guys that I really can call on at any time. Having that conversation. These are the women that, you know, have been there for me. And this is how I feel about them. And they already know about you, you know, like having that conversation and saying, I really want to maintain this this relationship and these connections with them. But like you said, doesn't mean that they mean less to me. This just means a lot to me, you and I. So I want to let you know that I care about them, but I also want us to grow with each other. But I want you to see, you know, who cares about me and who I care about.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I think that's an easy conversation to have. It's just, and we're not saying that we don't think that people are concerned about having these. We're just pointing out the fact that it's one of the things we think needs to be a part of those early conversations.
Yeah, some essential conversations.
Whether they lead to marriage or not. In the beginning, we said, if you're just joining us or haven't been watching from the beginning, we said that at the very least, maybe by having these kinds of meaningful conversations, you walk away with a new, really good friend.
Yeah.
At the very least, right? Yeah. You're not putting the cart before the horse and doing a deep dive and then having to backtrack and all of these things that have not been addressed come to the surface. Yeah. And now we're breaking up on horrible terms. Right. At the very least, we can come to a conclusion after spending some time getting to know each other in these ways.
Right. That's good.
You know, we can say, you know what, this might be a good fit. I do want to continue to pursue this more or further. But here we go. Let's keep it going. This is good. I like what you said.
Sure. That's what's up. That's what's up. Let me see. We have a comment right here. There we go. Well, what's that?
Oh, those friends is the issue in many relationships. I think we're talking about that.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, relationships and them. Yeah, beliefs and relationships, they can all be an issue.
For sure. This is one too. I think this is a whole nother. I think a whole separate conversation. You know, we touched on a little bit about this earlier, but anyway, talking about household responsibilities.
What do y'all think?
What do y'all think about that? Right? How should they be divided? Right?
Or do you
feel like they need to be divided? Well, are there any expectations for cooking? Do you cook? Can I cook? Do you like to cook? What is that? Cleaning? Any other household tasks? That kind of stuff is important to talk about.
Including bills.
Right. You know, but when you think about how we're going to divide up the household responsibilities, if there's a division, if it's one side, whatever that look like, just having that's funny. Just having a conversation about that, you know what I mean? Up front is going to be important because, you know, we hear about how men may want a traditional wife, but are they going to be a traditional man? Or a woman wants a traditional man that works and provides for her, but is her vision for what she's doing at the home, is that
traditional?
Is it traditional, and does it match with what he's doing? You know what I'm saying? Does it not accommodate, but complement that, you know, having those conversations to see what that is, what that looks like, right? The last thing we'll talk about, I don't want to mix it because I think this will kind of, how we'll end it, we'll kind of go into this. But what do you think about this? I think we may have some comments, but when it comes to this conversation, what do you feel? And I feel like it's based on the individuals, like, you know, the dynamic of y'all relationship, with what y'all want or what you know, expect.
What?
I guess expecting is a tough word. I mean, it's a heavy word. This is what I expect. What you mean? What you mean? What you mean?
What do you mean? No, yeah, look. Here's some
Hold
other
on.
advice. Stay away.
Stay away. Yeah, for real. Stay away from trifling men. Stay away from trifling ladies
Women,
too,
yes,
as well.
yes, all of that.
Yeah,
So
and you could tell. You could, there are signs that you can see. I think. What do you think is a sign of a? What's a sign of a trifling man? But woman. How about that? What do you think? Let's just speak from that. What do you think? Oh Lord,
I don't know. I know what trifling. I know what trifling is. I know what trifling is. I don't think I can describe that woman out of context. I can't describe that person out of context. I know there are behaviors. That people exhibit, whether they're in a relationship or not, that are below the standard and expectation that we have for that role.
Right.
I think that could be that, but I think out of context, like I know trifling when I see it. I just don't think I can describe out of thin air what that person represents or looks like. But I will say, when it comes to, like you said, the division of household responsibilities, there is a difference. Like, there are men who want a traditional wife; they will be the providers, but they want certain things managed in the home. There are women who want a traditional spouse, husband, that will carry out certain obligations and duties. But the question is for them, are they also willing to align themselves with being what is considered a traditional wife? I think for us, I think that we are a hybrid. I absolutely believe in what the Bible says concerning the marriage relationship. I believe that my husband has practiced loving me as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. That's what the Lord asked him to do. I believe, and we're still on a growing journey for that, because we're still married, we're still alive, and we're still married. So we're still living out that word. And I believe I'm still living out that word that says, wives, submit to your husband, as head of the household. And I appreciate the fact that the Lord tells husbands to handle us as the weaker vessel, but as joint heirs, meaning that he says don't deal harshly with your wife. Men don't deal harshly with your wife. My husband does not deal harshly with me. That's a good thing. And so I believe that for some people, they don't like that conversation because it sounds traditional, and I do present as modern. I would say we are a hybrid couple because I believe in all those things. I still enjoy cooking. I don't enjoy laundry. I ain't going to enjoy nobody's laundry, but I will always make sure that my husband has, clothes that are clean. And if he decides to do a load on his own, guess what? He will grab a few of my things too and put them in the load. One of us will get him out the dryer. If I pull him out the dryer, I'll fold him. He pulls him out the dryer, he'll fold them. We share responsibilities. He has no problem with cooking, but I love cooking for my family.
You're good at it too.
Thank you.
I like cooking too.
And he's a grill master. So, when we get a new smoker,
try to skip over at the beginning. She made some chicken strips today when we got on church with some.
We got Chick-fil-A at the house.
Some green beans. It was good.
Anyway, it was very good. And it didn't take long to make either. No. But I think we're a hybrid in that way. I would consider us more of a hybrid in that we do share. There are some responsibilities that we don't share. And I don't expect my husband to do. If I'm like, I don't expect him to clean our master bathroom. That's something that if I notice things, I'll come through and I'll clean up our sinks. Usually my side of the sink is messier than his anyway. That's something that I'll do, but I'll grab all of our towels and washcloths. I'll do a load of towels and washcloths and make sure that he has everything he needs. I check the shower, make sure that, he has body wash. If he remembers that he needs a body wash or a certain type, I'm adding it to the shopping list so I can get it while I'm getting the toilet paper and other toiletries and cleaning products for the house. I still enjoy doing those things as a woman. I appreciate that. Now, that's not everybody. I get that. But as for us, that is our view on the division of household responsibilities. If something spills, he's not going to leave it for me and say, oh, she'll get it when she mops. He's going to look for the mop bucket and he's going to clean it up. But if he wastes something behind him and he's already sitting down and he doesn't see it, I absolutely don't have a problem with taking his shoes to the bedroom or wiping the counter that I'm probably going to wipe anyway. Because if I don't want to see it messy, I'm going to wipe it. And I'm not thinking, oh, you're so messy. You're always doing this. I don't think any of his.
Up after myself.
I mean, for the most part, he's not trifling.
I don't see something. Yeah.
But there are just certain things like we wake
up.
I
definitely don't expect you to clean up after me.
No, that wouldn't be fair.
Yeah, that's just
because
that's trifling. To me, I feel like I would be trifling if I did that.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like that's inconsiderate. You know, I'm not raising my children to be that way. You know,
we enforce chores and
definitely will get on them about that. Like clean up after yourself. You know.
Yeah, we have we have shared responsibilities. We teach our kids to clean up after themselves, but also to clean up after each other. Each one of our kids has a week of the kitchen, a week of the bathroom, or a week of like Zion takes out our trash from recycling. Yeah. And it's not because the girls don't know how, but we've always had 3 men in the house that can do it. Yeah. So the 3 ladies have not had that expectation, but all of us know how to reline a trash bag when it's time to put a new trash bag in or take some trash out to the side of the house. We just don't have to. We're blessed in that way. But I think the only reason why I said it was unfair and not trifling is because we work together. Yeah. We leave the same time and we get home at the same time. So for him to have an expectation that things would just magically happen in my absence, like I'm getting home at the same time as him. So he doesn't complain if dinner takes an extra, 40 minutes or something like that to get done, because I can whip something up, but he's not going to complain about something like that. Now, there are some minutes like when I get home, I expect dinner on the table. Well, if you expect dinner on the table, do you expect me to be at the house all day? Have you provided a lifestyle that, or do I prefer a lifestyle that has me in the house, maybe raising kids or not, just taking care of the home? Some women like that too. And I think it's commendable. I think it's dope. But I also really like what I do. I like working, at least for now. I've always enjoyed it. My husband knows, like, I'm always doing something. I'm always just into something creatively. I enjoy it for now. So I'm sure if there was a time and I felt like that's what I wanted, I think that would be a conversation we would have. But when it comes to dividing and division is this. Division doesn't always mean there's equal parts. Mm-hmm. Division sometimes is like 3 remainder 2. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that there's a remainder. There are some things that I will do that he doesn't have to do. I don't ask him to do. I don't expect him to do it. I just do them. And that works for us. If it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you. But again, it's the conversation or it's the behavior, because there are some things that I do that were never conversations. They were just behaviors. Yeah. Right. And there are some things that you do that were never conversations. You do for me that were never conversations. They were just behaviors, because I have never, as long as I've been married to him, have had to take out trash, cut grass, weed eat, trim bushes, trim branches, all stuff he does. I've never had to put gasoline in the lawnmower. I don't even have to put gas in the car. I've done it before. Like, technically I know how. He taught me how, but those are not things that as his wife that I have to do. I don't have to wash the car. I don't have to go vacuum the car. These are all things that he does. So when we talk about household, I really think about all of the things that pertain to our lifestyle when it comes to that. These are things that I don't have to do, but do I know how to do them? Yes. The things that I do, does he know how to do them? Yes. But division doesn't always mean equal. Division can still mean different. It just means shared responsibilities.
Yeah, that's real.
I feel like I talked a lot about that.
Yeah, it's all good. Have the conversation.
Yes.
Talk about it. See what y'all agree on.
Yes.
What it should look like, and go from there. But these are just topics to discuss, because these are potential things that can cause conflict.
Ooh, yes.
In a relationship, if you have expectations that weren't clear or weren't talked about, right? But in my mind, I put together this whole narrative on how things should go. And when I don't see that, then now I have an issue. And now we're talking about it reactively, and we know that reactions are a lot more. It's a lot more intense and crazy than proactive, right? You know, if I'm reacting to something, it's probably going to be, you know, because of how I feel in the moment, and now the conversation will be a little bit more heated because I'm frustrated. You know, so these are just some things. Hey, how do you feel about these things? What do you think about the division of household responsibilities, or however you want to say that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because there are some things, you know, that you already do, right? That you are just used to doing. And so there may be, I mean, for some people who may be very neat and like, this is how I like things.
Right.
That's a conversation too. Like, you know, if it's, I mean, I know you have the some people say I'm, you know, very OCD and I gotta have things. Just talk about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, you know, that kind of stuff is important to discuss, because it can be very frustrating if it's something that a way that you are, but then somebody doesn't understand that. Now they can't you know, they will never live up to your expectations when it comes to that. And if you don't talk about it, how can you show grace if they're not like that? You know what I mean? So it's kind of just have the conversation to see what you think about those things. And it's not about who does what. It's not about who does more or less. It's only about that if you agree to those things, or if it's something that you don't talk about. And now it's like, I do this, and this, and you don't do nothing. Then now we got a whole nother issue, that now we're talking about. But yes, definitely set expectations and even discuss expectations. Like, what do you expect? Because that's not the type of. Can we negotiate? Can we?
I like that.
What does that look like? You know, because I might not be that type of person that can do that. Maybe I don't know how to do that. Maybe you're not the type of woman that do that. I really want to say dudes.
You want to say dudes.
Maybe you might not be the type of woman that does that type of stuff, or maybe you don't know how to do it. So it's like, let's talk about those things. You want to talk,
it might not even be your fault.
Right?
You just don't know, because that's not what you saw. It's not part of your makeup, even.
Right? Because my brother, Lord rest his soul, he loved to cook, so he didn't necessarily have to have someone that could cook, because that was his thing. And there are men out there that I know that are straight up chefs, and they're just like, this is what I'm passionate about. So yes, I'm cooking for my wife and my family. That's just what I love to do. So I don't expect, you know, my wife or my significant other, you know, on her way to being my wife, I don't expect her to cook every meal. You know, we might learn together. I may teach you something. But it's one of those things where you just need to discuss it and go from there. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
You crazy.
Yeah. All right. We got one more, and then we're gonna we're gonna wrap it up. So the last one is discussing personal goals and hobbies. You know, that's really good. And I think the main reason why it's important to discuss goals and hobbies is because, you know, we want to see how we can support each other on these things. You know what I'm saying? Like, how can we help each other to grow and discuss how we can support each other as we pursue our interests.
I
right?
like that. I like
you know
that.
what I mean?
Yeah, I like that.
That's why. Like, what is it that you love to do? What is it that you are doing? And how can I support you in pursuing this thing? Because, you know, it's not just about working all the time. You do have to have some kind of hobbies or something to give you a break or a peace of mind. You know what I mean? And just discussing that. It may just be, look, I like to sit back and watch, you know, MacGyver, you know, like the old show. I don't know. Might like to watch my favorite Netflix show or whatnot, whatever that is. If you're a movie buff, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, if you collect, if you're a collector,
sure,
you know, whatever that is, discuss it, talk about that, and see how you can support each other on those things. And then this is a good a topic of a conversation too, just to see what the person that you're in love with likes.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And that's something you can ask early on.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
What do you enjoy doing? What makes you smile? If you could do anything, you know, every day, what would that be? If you could do, what would you do if you could do it every single weekend? And those conversations are also helpful. It's just helping you get to know. Again, it's just giving you insight and intel. But if you hear something about somebody's personal goals and they're like, look, I want to travel the world. That is a personal goal and aspiration of mine. I don't want to stay in one place. I want to carry a backpack and I want to travel to different cities and do Airbnbs. And you're the type of person that's like, I really am not into it. There's a parent, I'm taking care of a parent. And I can't be in and out the country like that. Or you know, my lifestyle is not conducive to that. Point, those are great things to know, you know, early on. And you might also find like, you know what, that's cool that you love to travel. I never really thought about that. Like, yeah, when you get you a passport, that's cool. I think I need a passport. You know, so those things can invite you into someone's world in a way and expose you to things and experiences that you just never thought that you would ever have, think, or do.
Yeah.
So
that's good. That's good.
Still learning, right? Again, at the very least, you get a great friend that you two know a lot of good, useful things about in the future.
Right. No, for sure.
Before you make it all romantic and all that kind of stuff, because just say that before it gets all romantical and things.
Right. Oh my goodness. That's real. Okay, so.
Is that another question?
Miss Diane, did y'all mention prenuptial agreements? No, we
did, but we can.
Yeah.
What do you think about prenuptial agreements?
Yeah.
And that's for anybody. What are your thoughts?
What are your thoughts on
should you have one?
Nuptial?
Or do you
prenuptial?
Or should you not?
Yeah.
Because I think there's a couple of schools of thought on it.
Yeah.
And we'll give ours. So what say you?
Yeah.
I don't think there's a wrong answer to it. I'm be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer.
Yeah.
But again, I do believe that we come together, we become one. And I am a proponent of us sharing, you know, our things. But I also understand that in different phases of life, if I have accumulated certain assets, and I'm getting into another relationship later on in life, and I know a very personal story concerning this, it's something that I would definitely entertain. I'm not saying do, but if you're unsure, if you consider it, yes, possible. I know someone who remarried someone later in life in their late 60s and had amassed properties, all kinds of assets. This person that they chose to marry, they had known before in a previous season, in an earlier season of life. This person was living with their mother when they got back with them, and they chose to get married, and there was not a prenuptial agreement. And this person, that marriage, it was abusive and unhealthy and quite toxic. It did not last longer than about 2 years from marriage to where they divorced. And the truth came out that this person sought this individual out because they knew what they had. 2 months after they divorced, this other person passed away and left everything to their mother and children from a previous marriage, and took half of what she had acquired over her entire lifetime, things that she inherited from her father. And I mean like homes, property, financial assets, stocks, bonds, accounts, just all different kinds of things that were not protected under a trust because everything became community property at that point. That was devastating. That is one reason I could see someone saying, I need to consider protecting my assets. I don't know that I would do it because I want to be 100% sure if I'm marrying you. In my heart, I need to be settled that this is really, I'm going all the way in 100%, or I don't need to do this. Maybe we need to rekindle a little while longer. Maybe we need to be friends a little while longer. Maybe I need to give you enough time courting. And I know, you know, in different seasons of your life, you can feel like I don't have enough time for all that. If we're going to do this thing, we're going to do this thing. But if I'm really not that sure that I'm safe and that my assets and what I have can be shared with you, and I don't need to protect them from you, then I don't know that it's something that I would want to commit to.
Yeah.
And that's just me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to commit to a relationship where I have that level of uncertainty.
But you're saying depending on where you are in life.
Depending on where I am in life, because when you and I got married at 23, absolutely not. I wasn't, no, the things that I had, I owned, but they weren't worth anything. Like, you had half of this junk. Like,
but
you know, I felt like we were building together. But I think in certain seasons I could see, I could see in certain seasons of life why certain people would consider it.
Yeah.
Because I'm saying it without trying to be judgmental about it. I saw a situation where there was no prenup. They were later in life. There was a lot of assets lost. The person was heartbroken, and the person was not honest about their financial situation, their medical situation, knew that they were in that situation, and planned for this divorce right when they got this grim prognosis, and just essentially took advantage, manipulated, and used this person. And that's devastating. Yeah. So, you know, knowing what I know about that, had I not known that, I don't know what I think I would be completely against it, but I understand considering it.
I don't know. I don't think I would. I mean, I don't think I'm against it or necessarily for it, but at the same time, I think it's about motives too. Like, if I met you and you already had some things that you felt like, you know, you wanted, I guess, to protect, right? Because that's really, you know, I think
this person was
when
rich.
it, you know, well, even aside from them, but thinking about you, like if it was you, and I'm thinking like how I would feel about
you're
that.
Thinking about me and you. Oh.
And you felt, and you know, felt like this is what you wanted to present. You know, of course I would, and that's why this is a good conversation to have, to talk about. I would want to know what is the reason behind that, right? But at the same time, if you truly felt that way, I'd have to respect that. I feel like I would, because if my motive is to love you till death do us part, and we are coming together, you know, to share what we have while we're together, and that's how you felt. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure if I
being
would
on the other side of it.
Yeah, I'm
not presenting it. You're talking about being presented to. So because I was talking about having to present it.
Yeah,
and
I
you're
get
giving
that.
the other perspective.
Yeah.
That's
so
fair too.
Just thinking about how I mean, I feel like it's about motives. If someone is trying to take advantage of you and they're very headstrong, like, no, we're not gonna do no prenup, this isn't, like, that would be a red flag for me, even if I was just joking. And I know, of course, you know, a joke, that's really, but even if I was like just trying to see, what do you think about it? What do you think about prenup? Right? You know what I'm saying? Even and then have that conversation to see, because what is your motive? What is your motive? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and I, you know, have heard of stories where men are the ones that have had something in it, but they felt like, no, man, I'm not gonna do a prenup. If we go there, then that's just what it is. You know, now that's just them. You know what I mean? As far as them feeling like that, but it's love is I mean, you're trusting in a big way. Yeah. But I feel like if your motives are right, it wouldn't matter. You know, but it could be, and I don't even, there's so many different situations how we can even talk about that, because if I had something, if I had, you know, if I was rich and you got with me and I said that we're going to do a prenup, you agree to sign it, but I see potential that you could help me grow, but my draw, I mean, it just depends on motives. Like, that's a whole nother game that could be, I don't know, not to try to drum up different situations. I think just having a conversation, and if you recognize people's character that you are in love with, I mean, that's true. But thinking about how they deal with other people, how they do business, like especially it just depends on how long you're courting as well too, and
like they
watching
say,
how they treat people, right? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I mean, that's important.
I know that's a thing, especially if you are trying to really figure out, because if there's an interview process, not being tricky, but you're just watching and you're learning, you're asking questions to see how people feel, and then this conversation comes up, then I think that that's definitely something that you can be mindful of. Let's see.
Yeah. I guess that is where definitely securing wills and trusts are very important.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And let me tell you, wills are important, but even putting your assets in a trust, it can cost a couple of $100s, but not having your assets in a trust can cost you everything that you have. And, I imagine that, and it's okay. This is like, we're just engaging in some discourse. But I imagine, like, knowing that I have children, right? If we're using us as a scenario, again, I have children, right? I have 4 children, and something turns out to where I'm remarrying, and say my husband has left things with us, that my kids should have access to, or I've worked my entire life that my kids should have access to, and I meet somebody and I hope that they're as good a person as I think they are. But what if they are not? And I'm 1, 2, 3 years, 5 years down the road, I'm wrong, and they walk away with half. I feel like they just walked out the door with what was rightfully belonging to my child or my kids.
And so you gotta worry about, because I'm gonna be here.
No, I sure don't.
Mm-hmm.
But so I can see in some scenarios why that would be a consideration, because I don't want to give some, because we also know people, we can get it wrong sometimes. And I think under normal circumstances, it's a risk I'm willing to take. But I think if the risk involves more than just me, I think I'm going to be considerate in a different way as well.
Yeah, I think if somebody was really adamant about it, or felt like, just like, this is just how I feel, it's not you.
Yeah,
we're gonna be good. I love you. I care about you. But this is just where I'm at. I think if that's something that they feel or you feel, I think,
and I would be cool with that too.
It's okay. I mean, we're together and we're sharing in that aspect, and so that's what I think about.
Maybe you ever find yourself in that situation, I think it's also wise for you to move differently as well. Make sure you
for real, precious, right?
Make sure that you have some things. Is this?
Yeah.
Hold on. We're trying to make sure we don't skip anything. I can see that
going again.
Going and against. Trusting to the utmost, or being cautious just in case. Yeah, I think it really depends, I think, on the circumstances. I think it does definitely depend on the circumstances. Nope, they ain't going nowhere.
Locked in, precious.
But I think if you're on the receiving end of that, this thought just came to mind, because it's what I would do, just because I'm that type of person. This is how my mind works. If I'm on the other receiving end and a prenuptial is presented to me, the only thing that's going to make me think of, okay, as long as we're together and my intentions are to be with you, I have access to you or to it or to whatever lifestyle that us being together provides. But by the same token, you are going to leave some doubt for me as well. And so my mind is going to be, well, make sure I have my own bank account. I have my own investments. I have my own trust. I have my own stuff set to the side as well, because I have to understand that I may become accustomed to a lifestyle that if something happens, it might not even be me. You could take your lifestyle away from me and your heart away from me, and you could be the one to run. Or you could treat me or deal with me or dishonor our marriage in such a way that I feel like I don't have any choice but to leave. And now I'm leaving, and I have to figure my own way. Everything I helped build I might not have access to. So I need to make sure that I secure something so I can make sure that I don't put myself in a position to be handicapped in a moment where I need to walk out of the door to protect my dignity and integrity, and know that I'm going to still be okay too. And so again, I think that really comes from understanding what context you're in, who these people are. Again, I have no regrets regarding prenuptial, not having one in our marriage, but I think that there are reasons why people might consider them. So we could comb the Bible long enough and see what it says. I do believe the two become one, and that should be. But I think in those contexts, those are what marriages were. I think every marriage, the goal should be that it is forever. Right. And so I think you just kind of have to know that. And I think you have to know that by the Spirit of God, because as humans, we are flawed and we will make mistakes. We've made them before when it comes to picking people for our lives, right? We've made the mistakes before. So yeah, but I think that was it's an interesting question. Yeah. It never came up for us, but I think it's an interesting question.
Yeah. But it definitely something, a conversation to have if it comes up. Like I just think,
Yeah. Don't be scared of it.
Yeah.
Regardless of the outcome, the same way, we gave two different perspectives coming from two people who have never done this, right? And we were able to have it responsibly and respectfully. And we don't have, and y'all can't possibly know this because we could easily be putting on, for those of you who are watching, look, take it for what it's worth. It is what it is.
For sure.
We have conversations all the time, and we can have the same mission and the same heart and the same ultimate goal and still not agree on how we get there.
Yeah.
Because we're just two different people. And we have really learned over the years on how to legit agree to disagree. People like to say it because it sounds good and clever. I remember I was saying this to you the other night, but people really don't like to be disagreed with.
That's true.
We have to get out of our mind that we are being disagreed with and that we just feel how we feel.
Right.
And they just don't actually agree in that way. Now, on the things that matter, how can two walk together unless they agree? Right. So we agree on the things that really matter. We don't have to agree on a video that we watched or the ending of a movie that we seen together. We don't a restaurant. We don't have to agree on the service or the way either of our food tasted and how we rate the restaurant. We'll have to agree on that. It's not big enough or important enough to, but some of the things that we mentioned here today, those things are, if we're going to walk together in unity, as we're called to do in marriage and as people of faith, then we want to have some understanding, and usually clarity gets you closer to agreement than not having the conversation at all. Because once there is disappointment from failed expectations, then there's just disagreement. Things are disjointed, and usually there's not always a resolution by that point.
That's true. That's good. We got one more comment, and I totally agree, Ms. Diane. It definitely is. And I think once you say I do, I think that's the next step. Once you have that date that y'all gonna, jump the broom, then how can we get some premarital counseling leading up to that beautiful day? That's important. I do like that. And there are some of my pastor friends that I have will require that. Like if they're going to officiate, they're saying, well, this is what what we require or highly highly suggest that we do this before you actually tie the knot. So what were you thinking?
I love what you said, and I think that is wise of those leaders to strongly agree, because I think we strongly agree as well. We've done some premarital advising, but I do think, and I just had this thought, Keedren, like just now.
Yeah.
What if people got premarital counseling before there was a proposal? Because usually once you have the proposal, the wedding planning starts.
Yeah.
Usually that's a lot of skin in the game to get to the end of that and realize that this might not be good, or there's some things we still need a lot of work on. Yeah. But what if we said, let's do premarital counseling or relationship counseling and just work on some things and address some things now. And then if we say, you know what, this was successful. I can see a future with you. Now this man is ready to propose. and I'm ready to accept.
That's real.
What if that came first?
Yeah.
It's just a thought, but
yeah,
no,
that's real.
Yeah,
because it do hit different once you have certain, if you don't really understand the gravity of marriage
and individual things that
right
are going to come with that, things that needs, like, after all this conversation with each other, there's some conversations and some things that have to be reconciled within ourselves,
right? That's true.
That we that we're taking into the marriage, whether we're dealing with it or choosing not to deal with it. We're showing up as whatever we have, either burdened by baggage of all kinds of things, or with the weight lifted and ready to pick up the easy burden and that that easy yoke of what it means to really be in a covenant marriage with someone that God has sent to you for you to be purpose and destiny partners. That is a big deal.
Like this journey, this marriage journey with you has been beautiful. Like,
I feel the same way.
I've loved every moment of it. You know what I mean? It's definitely a blessing. Learning and growing with you, raising a family. Even pivots that we had to do together in life. Doing it with anybody else, I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else. You know what I'm saying?
Me either. Thanks, Keedren.
Yeah.
Got me twirling my strings.
It's beautiful.
It is. It is.
And when you're able to understand and get to know, because you're not going to know everything. Like, this stuff that we've talked about today is not going to, these are all ongoing conversations.
Even
this is
marriage.
Not going to get everything out the way. You know what I mean? It's,
no.
But these are just some things to consider and have conversations that I think happen sometimes after marriage, or after something comes up, or if you had these conversations, maybe we give you a different perspective on that person to might even want to go further in a relationship, because I don't think it's always a thing where it's just like had these conversations and I don't want to be with this person now. That's one thing. But then, no, I had this conversation and I want to be with this person even more. Or I didn't have that conversation, but I learned something later on that if I would have knew back then, it would have changed my feelings, because I didn't know you felt like that, because we didn't even talk about this. I assumed that you were this way because that's been my experience with other people, or that's what people have shared with me or whatever. So it's really being able to sit down and have a real conversation about a real person that you're really interested in, that you really want to continue to grow with, and you talk to them about these things, and grow from there. And I think that's what this is about, So I'm glad we were able to talk about that on today, and also thinking about just some of the things that we kind of did automatically, because that young love, you're getting to know each other, you're on the phone all the time and you're talking and asking questions, you know what I'm saying? But we're asking questions, and then even at school, hanging out with each other. Of course, we were friends as well. And so those kind of things are things that still should be done even as adults, if you can make the time to do those things. Is very important. It makes sense. Okay, let me see. Okay, I think a lot of people don't recognize that it is God's institution, and if it's not to bring him glory, what is your motivation? No, for sure.
That's very true.
For sure. I definitely want to glorify God in our relationship and in our marriage. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I always, one of the biggest moments in my life,
Genesis 2:18 through 25. Marriage is instituted by God.
That's real. One of the biggest moments in my life that this kind of speaks to, Miss Diane, is when we transition from San Antonio to here, my biggest prayer was, it wasn't me just trying to, I've never been an opportunist. It's not even, that's not even in my blood, my focus. I just want to make sure I'm doing what God wants me to do. Like, that's like, genuinely, that's been my heart.
Right.
And my biggest prayer before I even, before we even made a move, regardless of how things took place, the order of them, like, there was still in my mind and in my heart and my spirit saying, God, like, if this is you, like, I really need you to give me confirmation and work this out, because this is your daughter. These are your children, and I don't want to make any move without your say so, right? If I have to, if this whole thing was blown up and we still don't end up moving, I would sooner face that, because I know that's what you said I should not do. And I would face everything else head on, because I know, okay, God, this is what you're calling me to. This is what you said. But when I got the confirmation, knowing that this is what we needed to do, my prayer, before I even got that, was like, God, this is your daughter.
Yeah.
She has a purpose and a plan. You have a purpose and a plan for her too. Like, it's not just about me, right? Those kids in there, you have a purpose and a plan for them too. What is it that you need? Where do you need us to be so that they can grow, so that they can still do what you've called them to do? And in that, God made provision in a way that I could have never set up. We didn't even pray for this in that way. We prayed, God, how do you want us to move? What do you want us to do? Because we want to glorify you in our lives. And it's not about what we think or what we think we should be. It's about where you want us to be. And I would say the same thing and encourage you all, like, to pray where God wants you to be, because if it needs to be, if you need to stay put, that's what you need to do. But always, where is it that God wants you to serve? Where do he wants you to pursue the purpose that he has for you?
That's so good.
That's where you need to be, and so that's how we've always moved. Every time we've transitioned, I wanted to make sure that
it's true, y'all,
our children would be able to grow as well, that my family will be able to grow. It was never about trying to step on someone else to get somewhere else. God has opened every door that we've ever walked through.
Every door.
God has opened every door that we've ever walked through.
Down,
and I pray, for real. And I'll be praying like, Lord, give me strength to walk away from doors that you close, and give me courage to walk through the doors that you open.
Come on.
Because sometimes God will open a door and you're like, I don't even know if this is what you are saying, God. It's scary to walk through open doors sometimes, because you don't know all the time what it looks like over there on the other side, and what it all entails.
And is it too good to be true?
Right.
And it's not too good to be true. It's God, and it's for you. It's like the automatic doors that when you get close to it, when you just walk towards it, you set it's and thank you, Jesus. It's the motion sensor. It's not activated until you follow the path of the exit or to the next place, right? Going in some place or coming out of some place. But you have to be you have to be in transition. And that is the framework that you have to walk through. So when that door automatically opens, it's because it has detected that you're in motion. And when God sees that you're in motion and he opens doors for you, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Because we're used to having to push a door open, right? Or have to pull a door open. But when God, and there's nothing wrong if God says to push or pull, but sometimes he'll just say, no, just follow my voice. Just go where I'm following. And when he detects that you're moving and following his voice, doors will be open to you. And it looks like this is too good to be true. And it's not. A lot of these opportunities are a product or a direct reflection of your obedience to God. That it's that simple. It's that simple. Just so to not complicate it, it's just obedience is the highest and greatest form of worship of all. He said, if you love me, you will obey my commandments. Basically, he's saying, just do what I say. If you'll follow my voice, my sheep know my voice. And if you love me, you'll obey my commandments. If you love me, you'll do what I'm telling you to do. You'll know my voice. You'll do what I'm telling you to do. And so it will look like things sometimes in certain seasons come a little easier than others. I just want to say that to somebody in this season, that if it seems too good to be true, it's not too good to be true. You deserve it. It's God. Thank him and ask him for the wisdom to continue to pursue it, so that even your slowful pace doesn't hinder you from getting where you need to get. Go take after that thing that God has set before you and run it at full speed with him, knowing that his mercy and grace is before you and behind you. And that's what we have experienced. And it's not because of the place. I remember my husband said, he was like, it's not the place. It doesn't matter where we go. When we're obedient, we're in God's presence. And wherever he is, that's where we want to be. So it has less to do about the place. The place is important if God gives you a particular or specific place, right?
He's definitely going to make that provision.
He will definitely make that provision.
There is no billionaire's child or millionaire or wealthy person's child that can be anywhere on this earth that they can't be taken care of if their parent or that mother or father has given them access and provision to go. That if my children were in Africa and I provide, it doesn't matter where they go, because if I'm taking care of them and I make provision, it doesn't matter
whether they're here or there.
It's like, I got you covered. I got you covered, and God has us covered because we belong to him. God has you covered because you belong to him. And that's what's key. That's what's key. There's so many situations in the Bible, where the people, when they were obedient to God, he kept them, who was it? Was that who was digging those wells? Lord have mercy.
Most had it.
Was it Jacob? Oh Lord. Anyway, wherever they went,
I taught on it last year.
It didn't matter, right? God made provision no matter what they were doing, and so understanding that God has you covered because you belong to him.
That's so
all right.
Good.
Yeah. So we may have to do a part 2. But we love y'all. Thank y'all so much for
Abraham and Isaac. Hold on.
Was it Isaac?
It was in Genesis.
Yeah.
When God commands Isaac to remain in the land of his father Abraham, and
it was Isaac. Yeah, I know it was his. Yeah.
Look, we love that word. We'll look for it.
It may have been Jacob to find the wells after. But anyway, we love y'all.
Yes.
Thank y'all for tuning in,
for hanging with us.
Yeah, have these conversations, even if you are married and you haven't talked about these things by now. These are still good talking points proactively to have conversations on, to see what it's to see where you're at. Hey, Pastor Lana, we love you too.
Oh, sister.
We love you too.
We love you so much. You're so sweet.
For sure.
Yeah.
But we thank y'all for locking in with us.
Yeah.
Have these conversations, be open, be honest. And if it's something that you feel that is purposeful, I think these are purposeful conversations. These are purposeful things.
They're meaningful
to talk about, right?
That's right. And whether you were watching from the outside or the inside, right? Just scrolling and browsing. We're grateful for you. We're glad that you tuned in. Thank you. We got a few new subscribers to our channel, and we got some new people who have joined our Talking with the Bostons Facebook group.
Lovely.
So we are glad to have you. You probably got a notification that we gave you access to the group. So we're glad that you're in there rocking with us. Throughout the week, sometimes we have little short conversations, ask little questions just to kind of keep all of us engaged, because there are things that we talk about during the week that we just like to give you a sneak peek on and just kind of get something going. But also a couple of you have texted or messaged about my Not About Me hoodie. Some of you guys know this is our brand. So if you'd like to get access to one, look, it's hoodie season. Go ahead and jump into Our link section, we have them available at notaboutme.store. You can grab one, and whatever codes we have available. Some of you took advantage of that free shipping deal that we had. So big ups to you, and kudos for helping us to move that line of inventory, because I'm really trying to get Keedren to bring some colors that I want to see. And he's like, we gotta give the people these, like we have orders to fulfill. And so thank you for helping us to do that. But we also got some new things coming from you all. Thank you for the photos that you all have sent to us and shared with us of you rocking your Not About Me hoodies and t-shirts. We appreciate the love and support, but more than anything, that you are a walking, billboard. When people stop and ask you, well, if it's not about you, who's it about? And you have the opportunity to tell them it's about Jesus. So thank you for being a living witness for Jesus. That's what it's all about. It's not about us. And thank you for spending time with Talking with the Bostons. Conversations that we care about may not matter to everybody, but when you tune in with us, you're going to get real, raw, and transparent every single time.
Real talk.
But y'all kept us up too late tonight. This is normally an hour. We've been hanging out. Y'all are crazy. Look, y'all wanted to hang out tonight.
Listen, appreciate
we about to go to bed.
Listen,
or something. Get some cereal. What you want?
I need a snack.
You need a snack. I need a snack too. Look, he had coffee and sweet tea, so he got all the juice right.
Drinking water now.
I'm not drinking no water. I want some juice.
That's funny.
So I'm gonna go get some juice. How about that?
That's cool with me.
All right, y'all. We love you.
Love y'all.
See you next Sunday, same time, 7 p.m. Central.